back to the right. No, get back.
Okay. Thank you. We have 4 meeting minute documents to approve. So this time I have a motion to approve the executive meeting minutes from January 24, 2023.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for 2023 for the following dates: January 24th, February 28th, March 27th, and March 28th.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Actually, I'd like to ask that we carve out the first one because Councilman Hertzberg and I were not here. We could not vote on that one.
Okay. So let's take these one at a time. So we have a motion to just introduce January 24th minutes.
A motion to approve the executive meeting minutes dated January 24th, 2023.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any comment or debate on that? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining?
Abstain.
Abstain.
The meeting minutes have been approved with 2 abstentions. May I have a motion to approve the February 28, 2023 executive meeting minutes as presented?
I'll make a motion to accept the executive meeting minutes from February 28th, 2023.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstain? The motion is, the minutes have carried. May I have a motion to approve the executive meeting minutes from March 27, 2023?
Make a motion that we approve the executive meeting minutes dated March 27th, 2023.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion or debate? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Those minutes have been approved. May I have a motion to approve the executive meeting minutes from March 28, 2023?
I'll make a motion to approve the executive meeting minutes from March 28th, 2023.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second the motion.
Is there any discussion or debate? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Okay, those minutes are now approved. Will the acting township manager please deliver the report, manager's report?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Public Works Department, the Township Free Paper Shred event is on Saturday, May 13th from 9 a.m. to noon in the lower parking lot at Town Hall. The event has been well advertised using the township's web resources and visual message boards, as well as the Sparta Independent. We appreciate a good turnout. Yesterday, May 8th, the township surplus auction started online through Gov Deals Inc. with the last day of bidding on May 15th. Additional information is available on the township website. Road crews continue to sweep the township roads to keep road basins open and clear from stormwater drainage. Township will be receiving a $750 safety incentive grant from 2022 from the township's insurance fund. The award is based on all the township's safety training, attending quarterly meetings with the risk manager and professionals, as well as providing inspections, which ultimately keeps employee injuries as minimal as possible. I'd like to thank Jim Zepp, Chris Smith for their work in managing the township safety program. Parks and Recreation. The Parks Department is continually working on field maintenance, spring cleanups, flower planting, and and as well as keeping busy with pavilion rentals, tournaments for all sports and other special events. The department is transitioning after the retirement of Jerry Yonkers, and all staff is doing a great job. The annual Trout Derby was held on May 6th, and there was approximately 125 participants in attendance. As a reminder, the 2023 Senior Volunteer Appreciation Dinner will be held on May 17th, where the Sparta Outstanding Older American will be announced. Registration is continued for all senior programs, with the senior pool and exercise class almost at full capacity. Summer program registrations continue to fill up. Participation for the day camp at Camp Sacagawea are being finalized. We will continue to interview for more counselor positions as well as training the staff for the season. Utility. White Lake Field water lines are fully installed and ready to go. The library door counts in circulation has been higher month to month from last year. Each month in 2023, statistics are not always the best indicator of services the library provides the community. However, statistics are long recorded numbers that the library keeps for a trend. Okay. The tax assessor has advised that for the year 2023, a total of 10 county tax board appeals have been filed, as well as 2 cases being filed with New Jersey State Tax Court.
Mr. Rowe, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Where are we reading this off of, just so I could follow along?
It's the manager.
It's the manager's report.
I
It's
don't
not,
believe
it's not part of the
I don't believe
agenda.
it's printed out in the, that's correct. I think we can get you a copy later if you need. Thank you.
But no hearing dates have been scheduled yet for the tax appeals. Lastly, I will be on vacation next week, so I am appointing Jim Zepp as the Deputy Township Manager. If anything comes up during my absence during the week, please contact Jim Zepp. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And Chief McCarrick, I think you had some remarks as well.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Manager. Just an update from the Police Department. I want to let everybody know that May is Bicycle Safety Awareness Month. With the warm weather, the Police Department has observed many bicycles on our roadways. We ask the motorists to please be aware and share the roadway. We also ask the bicyclists to remember to follow all the laws of the roadway when riding their bikes. Some safety information can be found on the department's social media pages. Additionally, you may see Sparta police officers riding around on bicycle patrols. You'll see these officers in some of the busy pedestrian areas, such as up in North Village, the plaza, and our beautiful parks. We currently have 3 certified bicycle officers, with an additional 4 officers being trained in May and June. Automated license plate reader, Alpar Award grant. The police department was awarded a $68,000 grant to be used towards the purchase of automated license plate readers. The police department applied for this grant to have the enhanced technology simply to solve crime. Having stationary Alpars installed along key high-priority roadways in Sparta Township will assist the police department in reducing violent crime and motor vehicle thefts that occur in our jurisdiction. These Alpars will also help the Detective Bureau in solving crimes such as burglaries, shoplifting, and other crimes where individuals are utilizing a motor vehicle to flee from the scene. We currently have many gaps in our Alpar footprint, as we do not have any Alpars within the Sparta Township. The goal of this project is to reduce criminal activity, promote public safety, and enhance quality of life for all Sparta residents and New Jersey residents who come through our town. Special Olympics Torch Run. This year marks the 40th anniversary of the Special Olympics Torch Run. Every year, law enforcement officers in New Jersey exchange their uniforms for running gear as they carry the flame of hope throughout the Garden State into the Special Olympics New Jersey Summer Games opening ceremony. Eventually, the flame, after traveling many miles, makes its way to the College of New Jersey to light the cauldron to give the official start to the Summer Games. Sparta Police Department has been participating in this event for many years. Officers, along with high school students, township employees, and Sparta's very own unified sports athletes participate. This year, we would like to make it even more special and ask anyone from our great township to come out and support this cause by running with us. Details will be posted on our social media shortly, and more information, if anybody wants, can be found on the Torch Run, can be found on sonj.org. Bring Your Child to Work Day. The police department had the opportunity to participate in Bring Your Child to Work Day on April 27th. The children have opportunities to observe many of the daily activities that their parents do to keep this wonderful township moving. They also have the opportunity to have a lot of fun with ride-alongs, tours, meeting Judge Gavin, using our interactive training simulator, meeting our EMS and learning all about their services and equipment. We also had some more fun with some Nerf gun wars and, of course, a pizza lunch. We had children not only from the police department, but also from all departments throughout our township, which was great to meet everybody. I'd like to thank the manager for providing us the opportunity to have an amazing day to host our families. It was a very exhausting day, I gotta say that. So teachers out there, hats off. I know it's also Teacher Appreciation Week, so thank you to all the teachers out there. Police Unity Tour. Today kicks off the annual Police Unity Tour. The primary purpose of this Police Unity Tour is to raise awareness of law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty. The second purpose is to raise funds for the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial and Museum. Every year, thousands of police officers ride their bicycles on a 4-day trip to the National Law Enforcement Memorial in Washington, D.C. This year, 5 of our very own officers, Sergeant Robert Frazier, Sergeant Frank Scott, Corporal Scott Elig, Officer Christopher Bada, and Officer Andrew Spitzer, are representing Sparta Township in the North Jersey chapter on the tour. We wish them a safe and memorable journey over the next few days. And I'd like to just finish and take a moment to remember an officer, Deptford Township Police Officer Robert Schisler. Officer Schisler was shot on March 10, 2023, while attempting to apprehend a suspect. And unfortunately, this past Sunday, Officer Schisler succumbed to his injuries. He was only 27 years old. He had 4 years on as a police officer. Our hearts go out to his family, to the department, and also to his community as he's laid to rest today. And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief McCarrick, thank you. One question I had with respect to the automatic license plate reader. I understand that it might be incumbent on municipalities to adopt some type of data collection limits, because there are obviously some privacy concerns with respect to doing that. And some of those actually have, a failure rate of like 10%, and they may misread it. And I know, listen, I want to balance people's privacy interests with, obviously, law enforcement. If it's possible at some point, if we could, if you come across, sort of best practices with the data that you collect, how to purge the data, how to make sure we don't, infringe upon people's privacy rights in our efforts to, keep Sparta the safest city in New Jersey.
Thank you, sir. Obviously, privacy rights are a concern for everyone, including myself. With this, installing any kind of Alpars, it has to be regulated by the Attorney General guidelines, which are clear cut. All of our officers have been trained on the use on how to search, when to search, and why to search for a plate. Also, there is a portion every year, I believe it's annually at the end of the year, if not more than annually, that we have to review all the searches in accordance with the Attorney General guidelines, and also it is also reviewed by the County Prosecutor's Office on an annual basis. So again, we have to have a policy in place, which we do. It's been approved by the state. It goes along with the guidelines from the Attorney General. And also every officer who would be able to search or use these Alpars has to complete the training, which all of our officers have completed the training already.
Okay, thank you, that's very
And
helpful.
there is specific criteria on when you could use that to search.
Okay.
And again, I stress that it is a tool for us to use to solve crime for victims in this township.
Question, did I interrupt or?
There is a spot for public questions. Can you just wait just a moment? Thank you. It's coming up soon.
Chief, can I ask a question as well?
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, just to echo the previous discussion, there's some misinformation out there, not necessarily in Sparta, that these things run all the time and are picking up everyone going everywhere. And I don't think that's the truth. And if you could just confirm that or clarify that.
That is the truth. It's just like a toll. If you go past the toll and it captures your license plate, it captures your license plate. The unique thing about a license plate, it's viewable to the public. You could see a license plate, anybody from the public could see a license plate. Now, that information that's taken from that license plate doesn't go directly to the DMV where you could see the actual information on who owns that vehicle. It's just actually the plate that was on the vehicle at the time that it went past the actual unit.
So only under the criteria you mentioned before, that, I mean, there are rules around when then that search can be done, right?
Correct.
When suspicion of something happening. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if I could, refer you to the Attorney General's website, you'll clearly see that all the list on there.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I just had one question myself. Could you state again the torch run date?
Torch run date is June 9th.
June 9.
We'll be putting out our information on our website and social media. I expect to see all council members out there running with us.
I got my inhaler. We're good. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for the chief or the township manager? All right, may I have a motion to accept the manager's report as was presented?
I'll make a motion to accept the manager's report.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second the motion.
Any other questions or concerns or debate? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstain?
Thank you, Chief.
Motion's carried.
Congratulations on your vacation, Sam.
So the next item is open to the public for items that are not on the agenda. I just want to make a quick comment on the agenda. There was some confusion about the agenda. The agenda was distributed to the council members, I believe, over the weekend or Friday late. There was an agenda posted online. I'm not exactly sure what date it was. There were some corrections that had to be made on Monday and other changes that I'm not really that were introduced. The agenda is always subject to change, and there are things that come up at the last minute. But if any council member is uncomfortable voting on anything that without having sufficient time to review it, just let us know and we can pull it from the agenda if need be. So and again, for the public, if the agenda has shifted, I apologize, and we will try to tighten things up, I guess, going forward. So with that said, anybody have anything to ask, any comments to make for items that are not on the agenda? Now would be a good time. There you go.
Hi, Chief. Hi, everybody.
And
You
I'm
just
sorry,
mentioned,
and please state your name and address for the record.
well, my name is Jeffrey Ramirez. I'll say that again. Jeffrey Ramirez. I'm from Sparta. You guys pretty know me. I'm pretty famous around here. Well, anyways, Chief, I like the idea that you guys have license plate. I know technology is advancing, crimes are advancing, but what privacy concerns are you talking about when you're saying the city of Sparta has to be, well protected? Do you guys have everybody's license plate, like everybody's?
No.
Is that a possibility to keep us people safe in town? So everybody, the Sparta Police Department would have everybody who lives in town, everybody's license plate under that data that the gentleman is talking about, right? Does that make any?
It's not making any sense,
It's
no.
not making any sense.
Are
Why
you
not?
saying that we should have everybody's license
Why?
plate?
No. What's the privacy? I think my focus, I'm really terrible at questions, but my focus is what's the privacy concern that you're saying to keep everyone private? Everyone's what
Is
exactly?
that the privacy concern is, obviously, the public probably has privacy concerns with the installation of these Alpars. So the information on how we could search, the criteria of, let's say there's a crime in the area of Town Hall here. At a certain date and time, we pick up on camera that there's a certain type of vehicle. Let's say it's a green sedan with a white sticker in the back.
Okay.
We could actually go in and narrow that search, green sedan, white sticker between whatever time A and B, and narrow down our search and possibly come up with a suspect.
Okay.
From that, we take the information and we move on with our investigation.
Why, well, I guess my second question would be, why is there like boundaries and limits that the police department can't have license plates for everybody in town just to be safe, like who's in town, who's not in town, It's part of a database, it's part of a server that could be stored.
So from what I would think, and correct me if I shouldn't say that, I'm not really sure, but DMV also has limits as to what information that you could have from somebody's personal property, such as a vehicle. Something that's open to the public where we pass it while we're on patrol, while we're here working, and there's a license plate visible that we could read it.
Right.
That's visible to the public. We're able to look at that. If there is some type of violation, we're able to run that plate and get information. The normal person, the civilian that's out there, that plate is also visible to them. They cannot, and they do not have the means to run that license plate and get information about the vehicle or its owner.
Oh, so that's
Besides what
the
they say.
privacy concern.
Yes.
Okay. All right. No more questions. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Anyone else for any items that are not on the agenda? Thank you. Hearing none. We do have an item for discussion right now with the dais. We did have a public discussion of this a couple of times early in the year. We had scheduled a council discussion on this a couple of times that had to be postponed because of we overran our time a number of times. So in order to make sure this doesn't happen again, we front-loaded a discussion of the Economic Development Committee, which we'll have right now. What I'd like to do is ask every council member to briefly provide their input. And again, this is parliamentary debate. I'd like to avoid having discussions or arguments or back and forth. So we can go one at a time and state, what we feel the Economic Development Committee should look like. And then we could, if you have a specific question, you can ask a specific question. And we can make a couple of rounds. If we want to build off of each other's comments, that's fine. I did ask and received feedback by email from some of the council members. So if you prefer not to just defer to what you sent already by email, that's fine. If you prefer to do both, have a public comment, that's fine. So that said, I'll start off with Councilman Hertzberg, who was formerly on that committee. If you have any, I did receive some feedback from you today. Thank you. If you want to less rest it, that's fine. If you have anything to add in public, that's fine too.
I do. Obviously, this is a sensitive topic to me because I spent many years running that committee. But right now, I don't think it's even a relevant point. We've had almost 20 people quit town hall since November. Key positions. People in planning, people in zoning, people in construction. There's nobody left to do the work. There's not going to be any economic development. And we talked about this at a couple meetings. Have you guys addressed any of the issues going on in town hall?
What issues would those be?
The mass exodus of employees.
The personnel is not one of the in the scope of the council. So I would refer your question to Township Manager.
Council should get involved when we have a culture problem, we have people leaving left and right?
I believe the council should not be involved in personnel matters. That's correct.
Okay, so township's falling apart and we're just going to stay out of it.
If you have questions for the Township Manager, he's here. You can direct the question to him.
There's no questions. Sam sees it happening. I mean, these are people he's worked with for years. So, these zoning construction offices are necessary components to economic development. Businesses are frustrated. I'm getting calls every other day from businesses. What's going on? How are we going to operate like this? Many projects, potential projects, have already pulled out of town. Our meetings are taking 3 hours plus. These boards are backed up for 3 months. This is not, how do you operate a town like this? Everyone on these boards that had some kind of knowledge is gone. You wiped them clean. That's never happened before. You treated the statutory boards like your private thank you. SRD members were voted in, even against legal advice, knowing, well knowing that that would most likely trigger a lawsuit.
Can we move on to the EDC? I'm sorry, we could do
No,
this.
I'm not
can we
done
do
yet,
this another
but thank
time?
you, I appreciate it, but I'm
Okay.
not done yet. Meanwhile, we've spent the last several months talking about flags while the town falls apart. These are critical components of our township that we should have been addressing. But yet, we're talking about flags, and now we're talking about Economic Development Committee that will have no economic development to do. I brought this to your attention, nothing was done. I asked were there exit interviews. Did you follow up on any of that?
I did not, because the council should not be involved in personnel matters, according to our legal counsel.
Well, I've done my own exit interviews, and I can tell you, nobody wants to be part of this sinking ship. Nobody wants to be part of the culture that is now in this town. And that's sad. That's sad, because employees and councils over the last decade have spent a lot of time and a lot of effort building up Sparta. And now it's falling apart in front of our face. It's heartbreaking to see all that work and all these employees, dedicated, great employees, all gone. Early retirements. Many are going to other towns. We're chasing businesses away. How are we going to pay for new schools, playgrounds, park upgrades? On the taxpayers' back, that's how we're going to pay for them. These are long-term effects that we're going to have. You're not going to replace that kind of knowledge and those kind of skills overnight. These impacts will affect the taxpayers moving forward. It will take years to undo the damage that's happened in just a few short months. And if you think I'm exaggerating, just go ask people that work in townships. Ask them what the effects of losing 20 key employees, wiping out statutory boards in a small township will have. Ask them. They'll tell you. And, you know, I saw many of the things talking about focusing on small businesses, not addressing big businesses, right? Because we don't want any big business in town because, do you guys even know some of the big businesses that exist? Lion Technology, TechFlex, the company that make parts for fighter jets. These are great companies. But we are setting a precedent that we want to chase businesses. We don't want them here. That is not a good precedent to set. So although economic development is a key component to a successful town, right now, that's the least thing we should be worried about. Because we can't have economic development without the staff and the boards to take care of it. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilwoman Quinn? I did receive some feedback from you by email. I haven't fully digested it, but I did skim it. If you want to add to that, that was an opportunity.
To go through the email?
Whatever you like, whatever comments you want to add about what you feel the Economic Development Committee should be structured as.
Well, first and foremost, I will say I agree with everything that he said. And the reason why we have been able to stay flat, it's very important for everyone to understand the reason why our taxes have remained flat from the municipal side is 100% related to our ratables. Should the ratables go, you still need the money. So we need to be respectful of businesses. Every business deserves to be represented in an economic development committee, in something like that. Not just small business, it's not just small, it's anyone. It should be inclusive of all the businesses. I put together and proposed a proposed vision statement for the EDC, but I agree with the fact that we can sit here and spend another 6 meetings talking about this EDC, but EDC needs infrastructure in order to be effective. Without the infrastructure, it cannot happen. And if we sit up here and spend 6 or 8 working meetings putting together what we want the EDC to be, but then our actions show us going in a different direction, businesses are going to see right through that. And we need those businesses to survive. That is what is going to make us sustainable. That is what got us through COVID because we were healthy. We never stopped getting businesses here. Businesses, I agree with you 100%. I sat on the planning board for many years. Businesses are not coming at the rate they were, and that should be a cause for alarm. And it's not just big business that's not coming. I think when it comes to the EDC, Josh has served on the EDC for probably 8 years. It was a sad day, a very sad day for this community when we decided we weren't going to have one. We were just going to do away with it because we didn't like everything that was going on. And I think that set a precedent. At the county level, Tammy Horsfield, who is the president of the chamber, rolled out for all the municipalities in Sussex County this business-friendly award, this business-friendly checklist. And sadly, right now, we cannot be competitive with the other 23 colleagues that we share this county with when it comes to even thinking about that award.
I actually started that.
You started that. So Tammy is running with it now through the SCEDC. So before I talk about what I think this should be, I think we cannot lose sight of what it was. It was the melting pot, if you will, that helped us be able to be connected to our businesses. I've said this before and it's worth saying again, so I will be redundant in this regard. If it was not for that EDC, we would have been in very, very big trouble during COVID. The direct communications and the relationships that you had built over the years with the local businesses allowed us to be able to take action swiftly and quickly, to be able to change our ordinances, to update them, to be able to allow for tents outside, outdoor dining, different food trucks, the way that the businesses needed to change their structure because they could no longer have people inside. We worked tirelessly to keep those businesses and work with our businesses, and that came through information that we got from our EDC. So just like anything else, do I think that times change? Do I think that, you can always look to do things differently? Of course. But I don't think in order to get to the future, you throw away the history of everything that was successful before it. So with that said, I look at the EDC as a board that works alongside, reports to the council, first and foremost, and it works alongside all different entities, including, but not limited to, the council, obviously, and the board, the statutory boards, and the local chambers, whether it be Bill Aiken's Sparta Chamber or whether it be the Sussex County SCEDP. It should be dedicated to promoting and growing business and preserving an economic balance within the township, where they strive to provide a continuing source of improvements and enhancements to the wider social and natural environment as well, that strengthens our community as well as our economy and sustainability. Areas of focus within the EDC should include, but not be limited to, supporting and enhancing our business community and the way our residents engage in it, experience it, and support our local business, balance the economic development and environmental sustainability, attract and support the appropriate balance of business with vision and research and review existing and open and or available space, and make recommendations around potential development and or areas that need restriction. Serve as a catalyst for generating new ideas amongst and between our businesses and our community. Act as an advisory board to both the town council as well as the boards. And I think that this is the core components of basically what we had before. I think we need to be detailed about it, and I think we need to get back to it very quickly before we are in a place we are not going to be able to come back from. So those are my recommendations for the EDC. And I also think that if we're going to have working meetings, they should be separate and apart from council meetings. Because the problem with these meetings that we have that don't get over till midnight, when we come here and we're just throwing things out to the public, it's very hard for people that don't have this on a piece of paper in front of them to be able to follow along or absorb all this information. It makes our meetings go till midnight, and then we can't get to the other business that we need that's very important for the township as well. So I would make a recommendation for consideration that if we want to do working meetings, that they be done separate and apart from these meetings. So when we come here, we are prepared with documentation that has already been a collaborative effort, and all we are doing is bringing it forward, introducing it to the public, and getting their input on it, and then taking action either to adopt or not. So that's what I have to say.
Not at this time.
Not
no.
now.
Not at this time. I'm sorry. We're not open to public discussion right
No.
now. I'm sorry. We're not open to public session right now.
It's not open public session right now.
Please,
It's not public session.
please.
You should hire from the high school. Go to the
Not-
community colleges, go to
Can
the
somebody
local
please-
areas.
All right.
I have to go, I have homework, but if you want.
You can do your homework.
It's not
You know how to do it.
open session. Okay.
Thank you.
Announcer?
Thank you, Chief.
Councilman
Talk
Blumetti?
about that later.
Thank you. Before I review my notes and thoughts on this that I shared, I do need to address some of the comments from earlier that were opinion. Employee matters are not under the purview of the council. What does affect culture, though, is the tone of the council meetings and the culture, the examples we set up here. A couple other things, people have left. I have no idea if that's 20, but people have left to retire, which is a life choice. People have left for new career opportunities in different fields. I know that for a fact. People have left for perhaps maybe more money, maybe they moved. So there's lots of reasons people leave. That's not all attributable to culture. In terms of the boards being backed up, for the planning board, we're not backed up. We actually had a few open agendas for a number of meetings in a row. And for the site plan waiver subcommittee, we've had lots of business and we're flowing through those approvals. So the planning board, I can't speak for zoning, but the planning board is clearly not backed up. In
How about
terms
the
of
Environmental Commission?
environmental commission is having regular meetings and waiting for things to review. It's, we're not backed up either.
You weren't pushing off applications for second review by the Environmental Commission?
No,
No?
no. No, we were actually pushed off one because we didn't get to review it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if the environmental commission had a chance to review it, it would not have to be rescheduled, and it was scheduled the first time on short notice.
Well, I can tell you the employees I've talked to.
I'm speaking, please. So also wiping out statutory boards, that's one way to look at it. Another way is bringing in some new, fresh perspectives. Again, yes, there's probably a learning curve, but bringing in new people, giving other volunteers and residents a chance to participate in the government, mixing it up a little bit is not necessarily a bad thing. I would ask also, an award was mentioned that we apparently could not compete on, and there was either 23 categories or 23 other towns that we weren't able to address. I'm not sure what the context was, but I would ask, of all those categories, what were they about? What are all those programs and assets that disappeared in the last 4 months? And if we're missing them, then let's discuss them, make a policy to put them in place. I don't think that's all about not having an EDC for 4 months. Okay. So envisioning a new economic development committee, the name TBD. These are my thoughts on the committee. It's not meant to be an all-inclusive description of the committee. And I'm obviously open to hearing others' feedback and ideas. In fact, based on the emails I saw, I thought that there was a decent amount of agreement on the pre-thoughts. So to me, the focus is it's more than simply economic development. It includes supporting and enhancing our business community and the way our residents engage with, experience, and support our local businesses. So perhaps a name more like Small Business or Business Development Committee might be more appropriate for discussion. In my mind, the primary purpose of the committee is not to grow the quantity of businesses, but to attract and support the appropriate balance of business in accordance with maintaining Sparta's unique character, quality of life, natural resources, and a rural feel. Those aren't worth sacrificing just to increase the number of businesses. The budget and the flat rates on the budgets, by the way, yes, they're partially due to ratables. They're also a heck of a lot due to strategy, our CFO, policy, expense control, many other reasons why the taxes have been flat, not just ratables. So if we maintain Sparta's character and do this at the same time, that's what's going to ensure the attractiveness to businesses and residents. The committee's charter and activities must align with our master plan. It must align with the master plan. This is a showstopper. I mean, if we create a master plan and that's our long-term and medium-term and short-term vision for what we want Sparta to be, the EDC, whatever we call it, needs to be in line with that and support that and align with it. Due to the importance of supporting and protecting our quality of life and our small town character, the committee should place extra emphasis on two areas. Not sole emphasis, just extra. And that is on supporting our small businesses and especially those located in our town center. Part of what makes Sparta unique and charming is having a town center. So those should have special emphasis, not sole emphasis. The committee must always be focused on the appropriate level of development, meaning the quantity and type of development that meets the needs and wishes of our history and our residents' quality of life expectations. We go out and we actively market, and hopefully we'll do more of it, and promote our setting and our way of life. And again, this is to attract businesses and attract residents. These are home buyers, these are people that support our economy. We can't jeopardize those assets through inappropriate or overdevelopment. This committee would act as an advisory committee to the council with a very close relationship to the planning board. The council has legislative and budgetary and directive authority that the planning board just doesn't have. But there must be a planning board member on the committee, in my opinion, like there was in the past. The committee works very closely with our local Chamber of Commerce and should work closely with the County Chamber of Commerce. They support one another, but they should have clear, non-overlapping functions. Some of the key functions of the committee, as I see them: two-way communication channel with the business community, so about needs, support, issues, help fill vacant storefronts, and if possible, collaborate with property owners or realtors if we see that's within scope. Obviously, help retain and support local businesses with shop local campaigns and marketing and things that bring people to our local streets. Preserve an economic balance within the township, and this includes the wider social and natural environment that strengthens our economy. We should support and encourage sustainability practices and green business certification so that Sparta becomes a leader, a role model, which will also benefit, again, our residents and our community as a whole. Part of the functions we should also is connect small businesses to our local and county chamber of commerces to the degree possible. It's not an exclusive list, but those are the ones that I see are some of the key functions. Composition, I'll just go through quickly, just council members, planning board members, local business representatives with a varying industry perspective, and some of those should be from small businesses, residents, and then employee and staff. And I think finally, out of scope, in my mind, open to discussion, job creation. The focus is not on developing every last remaining inch of non-residential space. I think duties and responsibilities that the planning board already has should be carefully carved out from this committee. Economic development incentives, for the most part, not all, grants, loans, incentives, plan endorsements, things like that, are typically better covered by the Chamber of Commerce. It's not an absolute statement, though. And again, Chamber of Commerce is in a great position to act as a hub of awareness about monetary developments, business incentives, and other grants. So those are my thoughts. Obviously, not a complete list, but open to hearing others. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Clark?
Thank you, Mayor. I had hoped to use this opportunity to actually commend some of my colleagues about, some of their suggestions But I think we need to address Councilman Hertzberg's comments. I find it odd that, if you're purporting to attract businesses to Sparta, we would have a representative of Sparta to characterize Sparta as having a cultural problem, as falling apart, as a sinking ship. I would think that if someone purports to have Sparta's best interest, that characterization would be used very with temperance and with proper judgment, and I don't think it was done here. I don't know, and someone can tell me, what businesses have left as a result of this recent change in administration. I haven't seen it. Sparta will remain a very attractive place for businesses to be, for people to move to. And I think that people, as Councilman Blumetti pointed out, people leave for a whole variety of reasons. And I haven't seen any evidence that says, well, we're leaving because we don't like this new administration that's here. I haven't seen that. And again, we also have to be cognizant of our role, which is not to get involved in personnel matters. That is the responsibility of the city manager, and we take that division seriously. But that being said, first off, I do want to commend both some of the suggestions that I really like. One from Councilwoman Quinn was, one of her recommendations, and I agree, is the proper balancing between economic development and environmental sustainability. That's, I think, Councilman Blumetti picked that up. I also like, I think that what Councilman Hertzberg suggested on the composition, there's a lot of very detailed analysis that he did with the type, people from business, financial background, planning background, et cetera. I think we do need to have that, but I also agree we need an everyday citizen to be on this. Because what the question that I think the economic development should ask is, what do you want Sparta to look like? Fast forward 10 years, what do you want it to be? And I think that needs to be involved, not just with businesses, but with all kinds of variety of people. Because again, we got to remember we are a community, and a community is an agglomeration of all different types of interests, right? And we have to come all together and figure out what that is. And sometimes that means people's interests will not be necessarily considered, or necessarily, they get, full sway on what will happen. One thing I will point out is I think I would like to keep it named economic development, because I think there's other ways to drive an economic growth other than the business itself, right? I think that one of the things is, and I think it was alluded to, Councilman Blumetti, is that you also have to figure out, there are other things that drive economic development, like, do you have walkable areas? One of the top ways to drive up people to your town and to increase property values is having a very walkable city. Study after study has found that. So one of the things that an economic development committee could do, in conjunction with, I think, the planning board, is figure out how to make Sparta more walkable. How can we connect our Plaza Center to Town Center, to connect the Walk Hill River from the Sparta, from Lake Mohawk to the high school? Those are things that aren't a business per se, but they sure as heck drive economic development. Another thing would be, the rails to trails that we've talked about, and I've talked about here. We have a 6-mile rail to trail in Sparta that is unused at the moment. We have 50 miles of abandoned rail line in Sussex County that we can develop, and that's going to drive economic development everywhere. So it's not just the business that we should focus on, but a more holistic approach. And I think that the Economic Development Committee can help the town council, can help the planning board, the zoning board on how to do that. And finally, I think with respect to the relationship with the planning board, I think that what I see is, every zone is based on certain uses within that zone. And I think it would be helpful for the Economic Development Committee to assist the planning board to say, look, we may want to change some of the uses that are allowable in this zone, because that's going to attract a very lucrative business that also is not going to have all the external environmental costs, et cetera. And so there's ways in which they can work together. And I think that if we do that and really look at how do we want Sparta look like and what type of businesses do we want, there is, I can tell you, at least from my perspective, I have no, I'm not against big business at all. It's what type of business is it? We can attract corporate headquarters from a variety of businesses to Sparta. It's a very attractive place to live. We can get those big businesses here. It's just what type of businesses do we want, and what are the external costs that such business brings upon the town, and are we willing to deal with those external costs? I mean, we're limited by the road infrastructure that we have, and so we have to take that into consideration. And so, I commend my colleagues for a very thoughtful analysis of what they've done with suggestions. I think they are, very detailed, very thought out, and they do have, sort of the best interests of Sparta in mind, and I hope we can do that. And listen, I would have liked this to happen sooner, of course, but I think to have it, you can do something fast, or you can do it right. And I think by taking the time, getting other input, we'll do it right, and Sparta will benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll offer a few comments of my own. First, just to frame why we're having this discussion, the Economic Development Committee, that as it was crafted in 2006 with a certain set of objectives, the committee was not following those objectives. So that to me meant that they were not the right objectives, otherwise the committee would have followed that. And so we're here to try to craft what should those objectives be, what should the scope of this committee be, and let's have the committee operate under something that we can all agree on is in the benefit of the town. Secondly, I made a few notes that I'll look through. I'm going to differ from my colleagues in some respects. I see development as forward-looking. It focuses on the businesses that we do not yet have. And in my mind, we have a planning board to do that. The Economic Development Committee, as it was created in 2006, was structured as an advisory board to the planning board. And I haven't seen any evidence that the planning board requires that advice. But perhaps they do, but I'm not aware of that. I think the planning board has that scope just fine. So instead, I would like to look backward and focus on the businesses that are already here in Sparta and do what we can to help those businesses. And to me, there are two ways you can structure those things, the grain. There's organically and inorganically. So organically means that I have the right policies and administrative practices in place. And once you do that, businesses will just grow. An inorganic way is those policies and procedures are not in place or not perfect, and it requires some external force on it, which would supplement policy and practice. And that would be, to me, that would be the domain of the things like the Chamber of Commerce to help businesses navigate certain conditions and get advantages where they could not otherwise. So where I see this committee would be to fill the organic spot. Specifically, how do we make sure that our businesses we have the right policies in place, the right ordinances in place, and the right administrative practices in place to help our businesses grow? That it's not difficult to do business here, that we do all they can to make sure that when their doors open, that people come in. So this would be sort of an ombudsman for the Sparta business community. And so that I would rename it to a business development committee and again, focus on that. So my proposed scope would be, again, policy administrative changes to support existing businesses of any size in Sparta. I own commercial property for many years in Sussex County. I would feel the sting of every open storefront. They were very hard to rent. It's very hard to get a store established, get a clientele. It takes months, it takes years, and it's not a light commitment. And if the township should do whatever it can to help that. So I would, I guess, I'd partner with the Chamber of Commerce, and I would have overlapping membership so that the chamber could provide the inorganic, the fertilizer, so to say, that would supplement what we would grow organically with this new committee. And I think one of the other reasons, or the other things that made me uncomfortable about the committee was that the committee met at a time that was not conducive for public participation. They were met at 8:30 in the morning, often behind locked doors in the basement here, and the meeting minutes were not published, and so the public really had no insight into it. Sure, the meetings were open to the public, but when you hold at 8:30 in the morning, I work at 8:30 in the morning, so it's hard to get to at that time. So I would propose a mixture of people at least one member of the Chamber of Commerce to act as a liaison for cross-pollination there. I would have a current member of the Planning Board, I agree with that. I would have a number of business owners, current business owners in Sparta, and at least 2 residents that are not business owners in Sparta. And I would also had 2 council liaisons who are not part of the formal membership of the committee, similar to what we do with the Environmental Commission. And those are all the comments I would like to make. So I think unless anybody has any final thought or comment on somebody else's comment, where I would like to go is that.
I do have a comment.
I do too.
So,
Sure, I
you know,
can.
one of the things you continually criticized over the years is the 8:30 meeting time.
I do.
But what everybody needs to know is that's the meeting time that the committee members, these business owners, they picked it because they were volunteers and they had to get to their business. So they wanted to meet then so they could be part of it and then go to work. They chose that time.
I understand.
I mean, I know you understand, but you didn't care.
I still didn't agree with it. No, I think I think transparency is.
So let me address that too.
Okay.
So you're addressing policies that some may be controversial, some may be, not liked by everyone. Which business owner is going to do something that's a little controversial in town and drive business out of their office? That's why we met in private, because these people had to be open and honest about what was going on and what would make sense and what would be good and what would be bad. They aren't going to be open and honest if it's something that might hurt their business. This has happened over years, and we can talk about, all these ideas and all these things, but I can tell you what actually happened was a huge forum where all the businesses in town came and gave us a top 10 list of what the things were that were hurting them or they thought were better. And we made that top 10 list and we started knocking them out one by one. The major one was streamlining things in town, so when they came to town hall, they knew they had somebody they could go to who would walk them through the process and make life easier. We did that. It took a long time to cut through bureaucracy to steal the number 1 guy in the county to come help businesses. And I can tell you, the last meeting before the end of last year, all the businesses got up one by one and said, we notice the difference, we see the difference, things are better. All gone, all gone. So you guys can sit here and say, I don't see evidence that people are leaving. I know these people personally, I talk to them personally, and it is personal to me. So when we are losing good people because they don't want to be here anymore, you can make up all the things you want, but the truth is they are leaving because they see what's happening and they don't want to be part of it. That's the truth.
Excellent. Councilwoman Quinn?
So I want to go back to the 8:30 time. I want to go on record as saying also that the Sussex County Chamber as well as the Sparta Chamber, both representative of businesses, both meet at 8 and 8:30 in the morning as well. Because clearly that's what the businesses need. It's not about what's convenient for your schedule, Dan. It's about what's.
This has nothing to do with
convenient.
my schedule.
But
Please
for
leave me out of
4
it.
years that you have been on the council, actually 5 now, never have you supported or voted for one member on that EDC. Never one time.
That is not true. My first
That
year,
is
I voted
true.
for everybody.
You have not.
Did you ever go to one meeting and talk to the committee?
No, I did not.
No,
you did not.
no.
And your point?
If
Maybe
you're
ha-
going to talk about
You're going to
something-
address a committee that you've never even gone to talk to them?
Everything you described that the committee does is not on the list of the things that the committee should have done. And what we're here to do. Please stop oh my godding me. Everything what the committee is doing, and I agree with a lot of things you're saying, that is not on the charter of the committee. So clearly the charter of the committee is wrong, which is why we're here discussing it.
Which is why it was rewritten by Janice, God rest her soul, before she left.
And that's why we're here discussing it.
That's the
Janice
start
doesn't make policy, we do.
So
We're making
I wanna-
policy.
It's my turn now, right? So I want to address that all the chambers, all the EDP, everyone meets at 8:30 because that is what is convenient, a convenient time for people that actually own the businesses, which are the people whose voices we want. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I do agree also, when you say meeting in the basement behind locked doors, anyone that wanted to go could reach out to anyone and attend. So all they had to do if someone was interested was say, hey, I'd like to come, no problem. Behind locked doors, it was in the conference room downstairs. So I don't think that it was like anyone went to a castle somewhere
Last 2
in a
years, it was in here.
dungeon.
It was in here.
Okay, so this is, okay. So that's even more to my point. When you talk about the liaison that we had, to Josh's point, who was so well respected and really helping, he's one of the people that left, unfortunately for us. And I think that I have offered with you guys, and it doesn't have to be me, I get whatever your reasons are, but I think before we dive into all these conversations, it's great to get everyone's feedback, but I do think that there needs to be an understanding, a basic understanding of the business culture, the community, the things that have happened in the past, before everyone goes and tries to recreate something that they are not familiar with. There's a lot of different nuances to it. The EDC is not Realtor.com, nor is the planning board. I will just tell you that. They may change zones so that they are more attractive for different businesses, but they are not standing on the corner. They are not writing letters to Wakeman's or anyone else to get businesses in here. That is not their role. Also, it is imperative that this committee be inclusive of businesses of all sizes. And we need to not limit it in its scope to just being small business because we just want to put that in a bucket because that's what we want. When we talk about a walkable downtown, the planning board, if anyone goes outside, the planning board before this year had been working on creating Town Square, which is right out here. We had worked to change the zoning for the 7 properties that are adjacent to Town Hall so that there would be retail on the bottom, housing on the top, with the thought of creating a walkable town square. So you take the sidewalk from Main Street, the sidewalk from Sparta Avenue, over by where Anthony Franco's is, run sidewalks there and down, and guess what you have? You have a walkable town square. That was what they were working on. Other things, so again, we need to be mindful when we start thinking, oh, well, we should be doing this. We were doing that. They were also doing, looking at boardwalk systems. We've been talking about this for years. So I think you guys also need to spend some time with Josh. He's the one that was doing it. Actually speak to businesses and get more acclimated to what is going on before we create something that is not going to be conducive to what we want. Councilman Hertzberg provided us with what I think is a brilliant listing of all of these things. He knows this best. I think that we need to take the time to look at what he's got here and maybe take the time to get informed before we go off making, decisions here that are going to adversely affect exactly what it is we're trying to avoid. We need to make sure that we have the benchmarks. And when you talk about organic and inorganic, where would you put the example that I just gave? So I just said during COVID, the business relationships that we had helped us as a governing body be able to react in an agile way. So would you say that's organic or inorganic?
I think that is a textbook example of what I classified as organic, which is having the right policies and administrative procedures in place to make sure businesses can grow.
So we
thank you.
didn't have them in place. We had to create them.
Right, and that was
So-
also not the scope of the Economic Development Committee.
Right, so what I'm saying is, we need to keep them close. It's great that they'll partner with these other entities, but it needs to be cohesive and it needs to be close. We can't
agree.
have them be far away. So those are my comments and my recommendation. And I've offered also, with regard to the planning board, because I sat on it for many years, if you guys want to know anything about some of this stuff, I've offered since the beginning. I know Josh would be willing to speak to you. And I think we should just, now that we've all gone through this, it's a lot to digest. I think we need to now ask the public if they've got maybe some ideas, and then go back and try to put something together that we can get behind.
Thank you.
Collectively.
And we've had 2 public sessions already to discuss this.
What?
We've had 2 public sessions already to discuss the Economic Development Committee, just for the record.
Okay, so then what we're left with, you're saying we're not going to ask anyone else for their feedback, so
I'm not speaking in
we have
absolutes.
our feedback. So what is your proposal for next steps on how to take all of this and move forward?
Okay. That's a good question. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, I'd just like to add a comment too. I mean, I'm hearing slow down now and take our time and do all these other conversations and go out and meet and all this kind of stuff. Yet I'm also hearing that this is taking too long. So I think the happy medium is probably maybe what we're doing. And I got the impression from Josh, from reading your notes and Chris from reading yours and looking at mine, they weren't that far off. So I'm kind of shocked at this reaction today and how dysfunctional this seems. They weren't that far off. I liked a lot of both of your comments, and I have
did I.
notes right here if you want to see them.
But as
Wait,
did
just
I,
let me
but-
finish. But I mean, we're not that far off. And I think I emailed that back to you. I was encouraged by this. So when are we going to stop looking backwards, everyone? I mean, and start looking forward. This is getting kind of ridiculous, all right? I mean, you're both here to add your expertise from the past number of years on the EDC, Josh, especially you, but Chris too. So that's why we're doing this together. We're not just having 1 or 2 people create this. I mean, let's just do this as a team and try to find out and maybe it won't be perfect, but we'll get closer, right? I mean,
I didn't show up here to fight with you guys. That's not what I wanted to do, but this is personal to me. I am telling you honestly, unless you fix the problems in the town, none of this matters. You can't accomplish, you can't do the work that needs to be done to bring a business in.
so maybe we list out, let's have an executive session, list out all these problems and let's talk through them then. And which ones are within the purview of the council?
I don't know that that's an
Okay.
executive session.
Let's get back to more parliamentary debate.
But listen, and I will say this, all this is great, right? I think all this matters. But the honest truth is getting a good cross-section of people in town, being able to have open and honest discussions, people that understand business in this town, both professionals and business owners, open and honest discussion, being able to advise council, that is the easy way to say it. We can put all the fancy words and all the points, next to it, but the truth is, people that know this and do this every day, being able to sit in a room and have honest and open discussion and being able to advise the council on what they need most, that's how you get this done.
Yep.
It's that simple.
I don't think there's a big disagreement there, as long as
think
it's
so either.
representative of the community and different types of businesses.
Always
Yeah, right?
was.
It's not a big issue, I don't think, with that. We just need to put some structure around it.
But that's, I think, with some of the issues that I'm having.
Okay.
So some structure means we don't drive the time of any committee meeting. We don't drive any of it.
The time's just a little tiny. We're spending so much time on the time. We
Yes,
can figure it out
can
later,
we-
can't we?
let's move on.
We spent 6 meetings
Well,
on
that's
why
not
what
about
flags are going
EDC.
up, and this has been on the back burner. The point is, we cannot micromanage it. We've got to provide the framework and the guidelines and let the committee, like it did, it was successful. Can it be, a little bit differently? Do times change? Yes. I agree with you, Dean. I don't think we're that far off. My problem is in these micromanagement things. Well, you're not going to meet here and you're not going to meet at this time. Who are we to say that? That is arrogant.
Well-
And I don't agree with that. Let the committee figure out these are business owners. Let them figure out what works for them. It's not our place. It's overreach, again.
Perhaps, but, I think three of us didn't have any times in there at all, or locations. And this is we're working through. It's not like the final EDC charter is out there and we are requiring it's at 6 or 8:30 a.m. instead of 6 p.m. at night or 8 p.m. at night. I mean, there was one suggestion, I think, about time. There were 3 that didn't have a time or a place. So I think this is just part of working through this.
So how
Thank
do
you.
what are the next steps then in taking all
Yes.
the ideas we came up with and compiling them into a document we can get behind? Is it something that you?
So the next steps would be, I would compile what I think is best practices, or not necessarily best practices, what I think is the consensus of what we just talked about into a concise 3, 4, 5 points to broadly define the scope of the committee and the composition of the committee. I think if we get too detailed, like the objectives in the 2006 resolution that created it were way too detailed and were not appropriate. They should be broad enough to give the committee some latitude but also clear enough to set the proper guidance. And so I will help with the township manager, the clerk, and the deputy mayor and the attorney craft a resolution to, as I just said, to reform this committee. And then it'll be introduced at maybe the next one or maybe a future council meeting, depends upon how quickly this can get together. And then we will all mark it up together and vote on it and take this out, put this in. That's just how legislation is made. And we will get to a final version everybody's happy with, and we'll vote on it, and we will start to constitute the committee. Those are next steps.
Maybe we should let Josh, since he was the head of the EDCB board, maybe you should work with him.
I think we all just work together right now, so I think that's
that?
fine. We all just did this right now together, so I think that's already been done. So anyway, is there, I think I'd like to close this discussion. And again, I want to underscore that this is how legislation happens. It happens publicly. It can be messy. It happens in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. And I think these are healthy discussions. These are healthy disagreements and healthy agreements. And I'm very happy with the way these are going. So I'd like to get to a couple more points and then take a 5-minute break and then come back for the balance of the meeting. So I'd like to, will the deputy mayor please make a motion to approve the expenditures from May 9?
Sure. I make a motion that we approve the bill list totals by fund dated May 9th, 2023, in the amount of $6,216,542.34.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion or questions?
I just have one question.
Yes.
It's just trying to learn what this is about. It's legal fees or consulting fees on page 8. It's for the Buzak Law Group, B-U-Z-A-K, Law Group for professional services /PDRM. Just wanted to find out a little more,
Mr. Buzak's firm is representing us in the matter of the Main Street County Bridge. Basically, our legal counsel, Mr. Ryan's firm, is conflicted out because they all so
We were at
represent.
the time. We're not any longer, but we were at the time.
Right, and Mr. Buzak has been at this now, probably 3 or 4 years we've been working at this project, and he just continued on, and hopefully we should be able to close this out within the next 3 to 6 months, the way the timeframe sounds. I believe they'll be probably coming in sometime in July to close the bridge to go on to the next phase. There's, I believe, 2 or 3 phases that they're working on this. So again, Main Street will be shut down at that time, and the detours will be back in place.
Okay, great, thank you, appreciate it.
Any other questions? Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Okay, the expenditures are approved. We have no ordinances to be introduced and one to be heard. Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 23-10?
Ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a capped bank.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public that wants to comment on specifically and only ordinance 23-10? Hearing none, may I have a motion from the council to introduce the ordinance as read? I'm sorry, to adopt the ordinance as read.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 2310 as read.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion or debate on ordinance 23-10 from the council?
Pam, could you just explain what this is and the purpose for it?
Sure. Basically, the state Division of Local Government establishes what the percentage of cap can be each year. Sometimes it could range anywhere from 2% to 2.5% or whatever. This just allows us to go to the max if we needed it. We've never used it or exceeded it, but in order to have it there in case you need it, you need to do an ordinance to say that you could use it. It's sort of circular, but like I said, we've never used it, but in case we did need it, we need to do the ordinance.
So it's a protective measure. If we had to
Yes.
exceed the cap by
If-
2%, we'd be authorized to do so. And we wouldn't be authorized to do so unless we pass this ordinance. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn,
Yes.
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes, ordinance 23-10 is adopted. At this time, I'd like to call for a 5-minute recess. We will reconvene at Section 8 with the public, open to the public for resolutions, and then on to resolutions.
That's the money.
Bring us back into session, please. If you could please find a seat. Okay. At this time, I would like, so we are now back in session. At this time, I would like to open up to the public to discuss any of the resolutions, and specifically, if there are any questions or comments on Resolution 9-2, which is the adoption of our municipal budget.
Jenny Derrick's happened to Sparta. I don't have anything on 9.2, but I do have a question about 9.6 and 7, because when I looked this afternoon, these resolutions were not on the agenda, on the publicly posted agenda. And I also thought that the ordinance specifically said, I have nothing against these flags. I'm just saying that your process in your ordinance, I thought meant that you were going to discuss it first, and then at an upcoming meeting, it would then be on for approval. So that's why I'm just curious
Right.
how this happened.
So at the last meeting, we did discuss it, and we
Sorry.
did vote to, thanks for destroying our place.
You're welcome.
At the last meeting, we,
Doing my best.
according to the policy that we adopted, we had to vote to put it on the agenda. We did have that vote at the last meeting to put this and 4 other flag requests on the agenda.
I must have been
And,
napping, sorry.
yeah, it was pretty late, but it did happen. And so these were missed from the agenda that was posted originally. I'm not sure exactly when they were made public again, but these was announced at the last meeting that these would be on the agenda for this meeting. And because of an error, they were left off.
Okay, because I just saw that they were on the on the previous agenda last meeting for under new business, if I'm
The
remembering correctly.
resolutions for the flag, no, they couldn't have been.
There were, you had them listed somewhere. There were 4 or 5 flags that you were going to bring up at this meeting. You said,
We made that comment, yes, at the last
Yes.
meeting, but I don't believe that was on the
so
agenda.
when was it voted on? That's what I'm asking.
Okay, so it was voted, it was introduced at the end under new business, I believe, at the last meeting, that we would place on the agenda for a future meeting 6 additional flag requests.
Okay.
And now this is one of the next meetings, and so 2 of them, because they will occur during the month of May, are here today, and anything that will be in the month of June will be at the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Comment on the Economic Development Committee.
This is just specifically about the resolutions. We do have a part in the agenda later on for anything else. Could you wait until at that point?
How later on, Dan?
I don't know. So this is just specifically on the resolutions.
Why can't we talk about the Economic Development Committee, which we just had just had a discussion on for an hour?
But with this part of the agenda specifically for the resolutions.
Can you give me some time estimate?
Chance.
I'm sorry, what?
Give the public a chance to give their comments to the topic.
That's not true. We had 2 separate meetings earlier in the year where the public did provide comments on it, and we have a spot in the agenda under section 13 for the public to provide additional comments. So I disagree
Okay,
with that
thank
statement. Thanks. Any other comments on the resolutions? Okay. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council. Are there any that we want to carve out for a specific question, or I'll start with that. Actually, let me start with 2 things before we ask that. There are 2 that I would, one that I would like to carve out, and that is 9-2. So I would like to have a motion, I would like to make a motion to table 9-2, the municipal budget. There are technical reasons why that has to be tabled.
I'd like you to carve out 9.6 and 9.7.
Okay, will do.
And I want you to carve out 9.3.
9-3. Okay,
I want to clarify 9.4.
clarify that.
Fine, leave it there, but just for the council's understanding.
Yep, that's good.
That 9.4 is required for us to get our GADA funding for the municipal alliance. So even though it says DMHAS, if you read it further, it's for the municipal alliance funding, which comes from the GADCA. So I just want to clarify that.
Okay.
And also 912.
9-12 for a separate vote.
And 10 and 11, please.
Let's do it one by one.
You should-
I think we'll do it one by one. So let's start with 9-1. Can I have can I make a motion to introduce resolution 9-1?
I'll make a motion that we introduce Resolution 9-1, authorizing the cancellation of township tax sale certificates.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed or abstain? Okay, resolution 9-1 has passed. I have made a motion, or will make it again, to table resolution 9-2. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion on that?
I have discussion on that.
Yes, please.
Sam,
Yep.
I know that there's a time schedule here. So it needs to go to the state, then within 30 days, and then I know. So my question to you is there an issue that is time sensitive if this is not adopted tonight?
What we basically would have to do with this tonight is we have to have our public hearing on it because it was advertised for tonight. We will not be able to adopt the budget because it is still under review at Trenton. Out of which review, they may give us some suggestions to amend certain parts of the budget. Hopefully, we have been talking nicely to Trenton all day, trying to get them to move a little bit. Sometimes that's like moving a mountain, but at this time, we can't adopt, but we can still do the public hearing.
So this, just to clarify, for everyone's clarification, by approving this resolution, adopting this resolution tonight, adoption of the budget in title only, that just sets the stage so that we can schedule the hearing, and that is time sensitive.
Well, the hearing we can actually have tonight, if they require us to do any amendments to the introduced budget, it may also require us to do a separate hearing just for those amendments. But the public hearing now is on the budget as introduced at the previous meeting, and that's the numbers we're working with tonight. So
It's
if,
not a resolution, it's an ordinance. You're having a hearing? It's not a
There's nothing,
resolution.
there's nothing in the agenda about it.
Yeah, there's nothing in the agenda about a budget hearing.
well, part of the budget is you got to have a separate hearing, a second reading on the budget. This would have actually been the second reading and the adoption had Trenton. And basically, again, we have to open the budget hearing up to the public to have any discussion on the budget.
So that's what I'm asking. Does this were you thinking that this was going to be the hearing tonight?
It should have been a hearing had Trenton completed the review of our budget.
Okay, so then it's de minimis. There's no repercussion if we hold this. It sounds like now we have to hold
Right.
this because Trenton.
We can hold this. We cannot adopt it tonight because, again, we don't have the approval to adopt it.
Okay,
But we can have the public hearing.
okay.
Should the state say that everything is fine, the next meeting, we just do the resolution to adopt the budget.
So I don't think we can, personally, for the public's sake, I don't think we can have a hearing on the budget when no one knew that this was going to be on the agenda, and it sounds like it's not. ready for prime time.
It's been advertised. It's advertised in the paper. It has to be done tonight. Otherwise, we got to start from scratch.
So that's what I'm asking you, if it's time sensitive and
Yes.
if it has to happen tonight.
Has
That's what
to
I'm
happen
asking.
tonight because that's how it was advertised.
Okay, so then where is the hearing in the agenda?
It's not.
I think we just had it, right?
The hearing would be basically, I have a handout that's available up on the thing. The hearing basically just tells you the amount of the budget that we put in place, the amount that goes to taxation, and the amount of revenues that we use otherwise. It's just a summary of the budget, which I have in my little handy sheets that are up on the counter.
So we had a budget workshop that was open to the public. We had the budget introduction that was done, I think, 4 weeks ago. And so the public was available then and asked questions. And now, by virtue of this being a resolution on the agenda with the handouts available, that this is the de facto hearing. That's my understanding of it.
Yes.
Okay.
And for any information, basically, let me just give you a summary on the tax amounts of the budget. This budget is proposed at a total amount of $29,630,203.53. That's the total amount of the budget. The amount that will be raised in taxation will be 17,657,673.26, which is actually a decrease on the amount to be raised in taxes of $127,000 or negative 0.72% from last year's amount. The library amount, the amount that we fund the local library is designated by the state. They said that we have to raise in the budget this year an amount of $1,307,000, $171.76 for the municipal library. Last year, it was less than that, so this would be an overall increase in the budget of $139,000. And again, this is designated by the state. That constitutes, on that particular line, 11.91% increase. Basically, the municipal rate is actually going down this year. Unfortunately, the other bodies that are involved in the total tax rate are not. Looking at the pie chart, basically, the municipal tax is 16.5% of your total budget. Municipal open space, which we have to put in annually to fund our open space program, is 0.32%. The municipal library is 0.122% of your total budget. The county portion of the budget is 17.56%, and the largest portion of your budget is, or total tax dollar, is the local school, which is 64.41% of your total tax dollar. So again, obviously, they take up the largest chunk of the money that you pay in your taxes. The township has actually maintained their percentage. Actually, it's gone down slightly over the last couple of years. So out of the three largest or amounts of your budget, the townships is the smaller. We're basically, the county has surpassed us, so you're actually paying more money to the county than you're paying to run the town. And that's about it.
Thank you. Any other comments on the budget? So the motion was made and seconded to table the municipal budget.
You better back that up.
I'm sorry?
I think we need to, we can't table it.
No, he said we had.
No, we have to table
Yeah,
it.
that's what he
Right.
said.
Yes, because we haven't got the approval from Trenton. So if Trenton gets the approval to us, we can adopt the budget at the next meeting. As long as they have no amendments that they need us to make, definitely we can adopt it at the next meeting with their approval.
Okay, so we can table it and there's no repercussions. We have to. Okay.
No, but we had our public hearing tonight, and you all can bear witness to that.
Okay.
Right, so may I have a roll call vote, please, to table? Actually, that's not necessary. All those in favor of tabling the municipal budget, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstain? Okay, Resolution 9-2 is tabled. Resolution 9-3, adopting and confirming the special assessment for the Glen Lake Beach Club's dam rehabilitation project. May I have a motion to adopt, or to, there was a motion made to table that, I believe?
9-3,
9-3, correct.
I'd just like to carve it out.
Okay, so by carving out, you want to table the discussion?
No, I just want to.
A separate vote, okay, so let's.
Are you going one by one by one by one by one, or are you?
Yeah, he's going by one by one.
Oh, you are going to go one
Yeah.
by one?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, so may I have a motion to adopt Resolution 9-3?
So wait.
So we
with that
vote,
said, okay, so
Okay.
you want us to vote on it and then we're gonna have discussion.
the motion has to be adopted and seconded before we can have any discussion, so yes. So may I have a motion to adopt Resolution 9-3?
I'll make a motion that we adopt Resolution 9-3, a resolution adopting and confirming the special assessment for Glen Lake Beach Club's dam rehabilitation project.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Councilwoman Quinn, do you want to offer discussion?
So I want to bring up a couple of points. First and foremost, I want to take just a minute before we move forward with the discussion to thank Judge Parker for all of her work in chairing this for years of time she put into chairing the assessment committee, and she's given her resignation. So I wanted to take just a minute to thank her for her time and diligence in this regard. The other thing, a couple things I just want to bring up come as a result of a conversation that I had with residents last week. As just some clarification points around the resolution to move this forward. So at the last meeting, I know there were people here that were voicing different opinions about it. I since met with Angelo and just confirmed that there were a lot of meetings that happened. There were hearings that were available to everybody. This is not something that we ever want to see happen. An assessment like this is not something that we want to do. And I think it's important for everyone to just understand, I'm not talking into the mic. It's important for everyone to understand the role that the township took and why in this and the lessons learned from it. So I think that this is very similar to other situations where you don't understand the long-term effects until something actually happens like this. In private communities, the dams that are in those private communities, unfortunately, are the responsibility of the people within that community, that private community. Anyone that lives in Lake Mohawk, for example, knows this painfully. We've been paying a dam assessment for, it feels like about 25 years now. It's not, but it's a long time. And even though we don't live near the dam, even though we might not even see the dam or it doesn't affect our personal property, we're responsible for it because we're members of the HOA. The way that this whole thing came about was that the state offered a great rate of loan, my understanding, for these funds for this community to be able to restore and fix their dam. The alternative was, I believe, to just close it down and that was the end of it. The township got involved with this because the homeowners association, the state wanted us to sign with them as sort of the insurance and the collection facility, the collection person, right? We did not issue the money. We did not give them the money. The state required that we sign, and in good faith, the township was provided with documentation that supported that there were X amount of homes. This is what it was going to look like. It was the homeowners organization that selected the engineering firm. The township had nothing to do with it. The only thing that the township did in connection with this whole thing, again, was what the state wanted, which was us to serve as the collection point. That was our role. Unfortunately, again, when this originally went through the assessment to repay the state, the money is due. And unfortunately, when we put in the list of addresses that were originally given to us by the lake, certain members of the community decided, wait a minute, this is not right, and they challenged it in court, and we lost the appeal, which sent the commission all the way back to ground zero to find another formula or another way to be able to figure out this assessment in the fairest way possible. What did we learn from this? Personally, as a member of this council, I would never, ever get into an agreement, anything like this ever again, unless there was a signed piece of paper from every single person that lived there, that they acknowledged the fact that they lived there, or if the HOA could actually prove through a deed that the property was actually part of the HOA. So the learning lessons from our side, again, we did not initiate this. We, in good faith, got into this so that the HOA could end up getting the better rate to get the funds. It's very unfortunate, and I don't think there's a person up here that wants to move forward with this, but it's important for people to understand this is not money we loaned. This is not assessments we're doing. This is an agreement that came from, the HOA and the state. The township just got involved on the collection side. So, again, I met with several residents, and one of the good pieces of feedback was, you should explain this a little bit for people to be able to understand. And that's why I wanted to take a minute to carve this out, to put it aside, and just make these comments to bring a little bit more clarification forward. So those are my comments.
Thank you. I'll just add to that. My understanding was that the homeowners association was given a choice to abandon the lake and let it go to meadow or repair the dam. And the homeowners association did vote to have the dam repaired. I think it's important to note, and thank you for offering those comments. Any other comments on Resolution 9-3?
Would just like to thank Councilwoman Quinn for explaining that. Appreciate it to the public.
Okay.
I will say that also, I know I did, and I think Mayor Chiarello did look into possible other alternatives, other than, this assessment. No one likes to hit someone with a $15,000 assessment. And I understand the financial pain that, those who will have to pay that will suffer. I know we did look at possible alternatives. They just weren't feasible. And, I think that, please know that, everyone here, as Councilwoman Quinn alluded to, did, their due diligence to figure out and, about, is this the best approach? Trying to ensuring that the calculation and methodology that is used now, will actually hold up in court. Asked a lot of questions about that, and so a lot of behind-the-scenes work was done for this. And I think that, all in all, it's an imperfect system that we're trying to do our best to, and keeping in mind, the impact that we'll have on the folks of Glen Lake. So thank you.
The other thing to keep in mind is I know that a generic letter went out to everybody with a specific amount on it. That amount went out to everyone that's going to be affected. My understanding from Angelo is that once this is adopted, a specific letter for each property will go out that will tell you the actual balance that is due. So simply because you got a letter saying you owe X amount, it may be significantly less because the people before you, if you're a relatively new homeowner, they may have paid towards it, or if it's a new sale, it may be paid in full, and there might just be a small amount remaining because of the readjustment in the amount. So please stay tuned. Once this is adopted, individual letters will go out to every residence with the exact amount of what will be due.
Thank you. Any other comments? May I have a roll call vote, please, on the Resolution 9-3? We had a public comment session and nobody came up, or a couple of people came up. No, we're not tabling it. We tabled 9-2. We're actually voting on 9-3. Did you come in late and miss the public comment period for? Okay, so we had a Section 8, we had a public comment on resolutions. That was the time, but since we're talking about resolutions now, go ahead.
Victor Susich, 209 Glen Road. I think the comment was made that Councilman Clark about the $15,000, but it's actually much deeper than that, because if something happens to that dam and it breaches, the way I understand it, the 42 homeowners would be responsible to repair it. Or even if it doesn't breach, like anything else, a bridge, a tunnel, a dam is still going to need some sort of maintenance 5 years from now, 10, 12, whatever it is. So it's a lot more than the $15,000 that's needed. There's probably be a couple of zeros behind it in actuality.
I was referring to the cost as it is now. I wasn't calling the cost as it is, in the future, as I have no
No,
information.
you said
on that.
15,000 is not an easy number
Yeah.
to absorb, but it's actually 15 plus in time, because some maintenance is probably going to be needed at some point in time.
Yep.
And I think another
true.
comment that was made that, Mr. Mayor, you mentioned, that from the homeowners association, I was never approached to be a member of the homeowners association, and I think a couple of the other homeowners here either. So with that, we were never given the opportunity to join or not join. And then you said they had the choice to either repair it or determine, I think you said.
I wasn't on the council at that time, but my understanding is that that took place around 2015. Is that, I don't know if anybody has that information? Before that? Okay. I couldn't tell you, but that information, that's what the information was given to me, that the
Or either repair
homeowner
it
association
or-
had a choice.
or
How-
drain it.
How we define the
never
the
had that
association,
opportunity.
I can't speak to that.
Or maybe somebody should look into that for us.
I think it's incumbent upon, it sounds like your HOA is not doing a great job of informing people, one, whether you're in it.
I've never
And two,
had a document, not to cut you off, have a document or paid any dues or fees annually, monthly, by decade. We never received a single document alluding to my property being part of the HOA,
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah, I don't know if I can speak to that, but I understand what you're saying.
Well, I think you guys are making decisions based that we are part of the HOA.
It's based on the deed lineage methodology that the assessor did. So that he did a whole deed lineage to figure out which homes are in it and which not. Apparently, the HOA didn't do that deed lineage to figure that out. Now, who at the HOA should have done it, I can't tell you. Maybe you could find that out and raise it with them. But it wasn't an arbitrary, you're not in there because we just threw a bunch of, we did an actual exhaustive search to determine who's in this or not. Obviously, there's a disconnect between this deed lineage methodology done by someone who's a professional and the folks in the HOA. They have one, tenuous grasp on who is in the actual HOA, but it was probably incumbent upon them to do the work that we had to do in order to figure out which homes are in this HOA or not. And that's where the disconnect is coming, it sounds to me.
You're almost forcing people to then consider, leaving Sparta. You talk about economic development and stuff, and here's a situation that you're encouraging people to consider leaving.
In what way? I'm sorry.
In what way?
Yes,
You want 42 homeowners to be responsible for a dam.
it's their
So-
dam.
Some of them
It's
are
their
on
dam.
Glen Road, this is what I'm talking about. Homeowners on Glen Road, who did not buy to be lakefront or lake view. If I wanted a lakefront home, I would be on East Shore or West Shore, or across the street from the lake. But I'm not. I'm on a county road, 40 miles an hour, to talk about sidewalks around town to connect to this to that. You can't even have access to the lake, even if I wanted to have access to the lake.
So I personally can't speak to the provenance of ownership of the deed of the lot that you own. But the homeowners association does own that dam and is responsible for its maintenance and had elected to repair the dam. But again, if your questions about whether or not you were in that homeowner association, I can only go by what the assessment commission did, and that was to again research the provenance of ownership of every lot that from the beginning when the Glen Lake Association was formed back in the 40s, 50s, something like
Title
that.
searches come across this. There's nobody in this room here, back there, that at closing, when we all had we had one homeowner within the last 2 years. 20 years, I'm sure there's other folks here that are longer than that.
Yeah, I
that
can't speak to
title
your individual
searches haven't
situation. I'm sorry.
Found everything.
I don't think anybody can at this table.
Joseph Grana, I live at 211 Glen Road. Most of the people in here that are addressing this particular issue have purchased their homes in more recent times. I purchased my home in 2018. When you purchase a home, they do a title search. You also get a copy of your deed. None of these issues have been mentioned to anyone purchasing a home. Had it been mentioned properly by the town, the real estate agents, whomever, it may have been able to be incorporated in the financing of that home. However, at this point, it seems ludicrous to now apply a 30, 40, 50-year assessment to current homeowners who have no knowledge of this prior to us purchasing our homes. I grew up in Lake Mohawk. I know what paying dues is. I know what they do. We pay no dues. We are not members. We don't utilize the facility. It gives us no property value. It takes no property value away if it closes. You're asking us to fund a bill to something that has very little, if nothing, to do with our property values. And yet a judgment that was made 30, 40, 50 years ago, poorly, might I add, acknowledged, is now being assessed to current homeowners. It's not applicable. It's not fair, it's not right, and it doesn't make sense. This is a public board. This is a town council. The state is funding it, and yet it is a private lake. Those lines are blurred. Is it private? Is it public? Is the private sector taking care of it, funding it, maintaining it? Is the public sector funding it and maintaining it? If the public sector is going to maintain it and fund it and be a liaison to the state, then that should be included in our taxes already, included collectively, not being individually separated as a recent homeowners whom this is hitting us over the head unbeknownst to us after the purchase of our home. It doesn't seem terribly reasonable nor fair. And it does seem that it should be, although I understand that at some point 42 homes are associated with this now. Prior to this, there was a larger number, I believe, right?
Yes.
Who determined that they are not now responsible?
Do, Mr. Attorney, want to speak to the,
Yeah, I can-
sentence or two about the methodology?
I can respond to a limited extent because I did not advise the
Just a summary.
commission, but that was, it went all the way up to the New Jersey State Supreme Court as to the formula that was used that included other homes. The Supreme Court was not satisfied with the analysis that had been done, remanded it back, and the Assessment Commission had an appraiser that evaluated all of the homes and did the research with regard to deeds, and made a determination and recommendation to the Assessment Commission, which conducted, I believe, 2 public hearings on it.
Prior to most of us owning our homes, but go ahead.
No, I think they did within the
No.
past year, 2 additional hearings on it. There were other hearings under the previous formula as well. But that was the process that was utilized. And then the Assessment Commission, based upon that expert's analysis, issued their report. We conducted a hearing on it at our last meeting, and it's on for a vote tonight.
It also has occurred to those of us in our neighborhood that many of the homes that were removed are those that are, for lack of a better term, downstream from the lake itself, physically, right? The ones that were affected by the flood in the past. And yet those of us who are above ground, above sea level, above lake level, who it really has no direct influence on our properties. It doesn't threaten our properties, and yet the people it directly threatens have been removed from being concerned about their direct danger, and those of us who are not affected by it are now being asked to flip the bill for their danger. Again, in a very dated issue prior to our purchasing of our own properties. I mean, does that, if you lived in our situations in our lake, you don't use the lake, you're not a member of the lake, you don't pay dues to the lake, you're not threatened by the condition of the lake, doesn't affect the property values of your home, and yet we're being asked to fund this. separately from the rest of the town. When in all reality, if it's a state issue, it should be taken from the collective state taxes. Where do you fall on that line? You represent us. What makes sense?
This isn't a state issue. Again, the lake itself is owned by the homeowners association. It is not maintained by the township. The township doesn't maintain the roads in that area.
Where's the funding coming from?
The funding for what, please?
The project.
Well, this is what we're talking about. The funding for the project, which is to rehabilitate the dam, is to come from the owner of the dam, which is the Glen Lake Association. So
You're a
the,
You're the
co-signer on the
liaison to the state of New Jersey.
The agreement was between the HOA and the state. The state required to make sure that they could collect their money. Sam, correct me if I'm wrong. They required, because the HOA went to the state to get the money at a lower amount, at a very much reduced rate. So the state said, great, we'll work with you, HOA, but you need to get the township involved because they're going to serve as the collection point. That is our only role in this whole thing, is to be the strong, to collect on the
Administrator.
agreement
We're the
that was done
administrator.
between the HOA. So if you imagine the HOA goes to a bank, forget the state, they go to a bank, the town has nothing to do with it, we don't do the engineering, we don't do any of that stuff. They go to a bank, they foreclose or don't pay, then the bank's gonna put liens on everybody's houses, and that's the problem. And believe me, none of us want this to happen. Unfortunately, this is, and I know it, anyone that lives in any kind of place where there's an HOA, unfortunately, this is one of the risks, and none of us want this to happen, and we did not secure the funds, we did not fix the dam, we did not do any of that. We were thrown into this, don't get me started on the state, but, to be their dirty, to be the ones that have to now go and get the money and retrieve it for them. And so I think it was in the interest of, help. We were required, we didn't want the people in the HOA clearly came and said, we want our lake, we don't want it to be closed. We want to do this, but you need to do that. And unfortunately, this is where it is. None of us want this assessment to have to go, but there is no other, this agreement was done a long time ago with your HOA. I mean, you reserved the right to
Is this HOA
fight it.
are they still operating?
I have no knowledge of an HOA. At my closing, at my signing, I've lived there for 4 or 5 years, nor have any of my neighbors.
And you may want to go back to the realtor about the,
No,
Sounds like they scammed everybody.
yeah.
apparently so.
can we just
just
one
like you-
conversation at a time, please?
My house was built in 1908. I'm pretty sure it's grandfathered, perhaps predating the existence of this pond and the dam itself. That's just individually. So I'm not trying to bring this up, but there's a timeline and a time frame, things prior to when this occurred and now currently, and it's simply not applicable to those of us who purchased our homes with.
Just a question, I want to
unaware.
make sure I'm right. You're saying at the time that you bought your home, no one made you aware that when they did the title search, they said, hey, I'm sorry, your name again?
Joseph Grana.
Mr. Grano, based on our title search, you belong to the Glen Lake HOA, and as a member of the HOA, that comes with certain responsibilities that are different, and that wasn't explained to you, am I right?
Correct.
Okay. So I say that in that I think what I would recommend that you do is talk to, a long time ago, I don't do it anymore, I did do some consumer fraud stuff. New Jersey has a halfway decent consumer fraud statute. What the issue, at least on the top of my head, says is whether it was material to your transaction, whether you knew that that your deed and your title was to an HOA, and then it's explained to you. I can't tell you whether they even had a duty to inform you that. That's probably going to take a lawyer a long time to figure that out. But I think that, to me, I think that the problem here lies in part with what you were told and disclosed at the time of the transaction. And I would think if I were buying a home, I would want to know, am I buying into an HOA? Because I know with HOAs, I got to foot the bill for a lot of the maintenance. I mean, I live in Lake Mohawk. We got to pay for the lake, and we got to, our roads, et cetera. We don't get, the town doesn't, we have to do our roads. So I know and feel your pain about that. But I encourage you to try to explore that issue, because that seems to me, although we can't provide a remedy to you, you may have one available to you, and I'd encourage you to explore that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Bob Gasper. I live at 53 Glen Lake Road. Part of the confusion, I think, is that there is no HOA. It's a lake association. It's not, membership is not mandatory in that it can't be, you can't force people to pay that where we are. So there isn't an HOA. So we've been calling it an HOA the whole time, and there is no formal HOA. It's a beach association that I think was probably started by a bunch of people hanging out at the lake. And then it came to pass that the dam was breaking, and the state told us we had to fix the dam, and that's how this, and that happened before I lived there, I think in 2005. And there is a signed letter, you were mentioning that. There is a signed letter from all the residents that lived there at the time. I don't know if it's your properties or not, but saying, yes, we want this dam to go through, we want it to be fixed. And it's in the, I got the report from Roxanne, and it lists everybody who signed, and some of those people who signed are not being assessed now, which is also strange. So there are houses across, I think we've been talking about them, across Glen Road that are not a part of this assessment now because of the new assessment. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out so that that was clear. I don't know if that's helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And your name was, I'm sorry, your name was?
Bob Gasper.
Bob Gasper?
Yes, with a G.
Sorry, Bob Gasper.
Not like the ghost.
Right?
Well, you don't owe it to the organization. Yeah, it's a weird.
Right, the organization owns it to the bank, but there is no organization. People that signed off in the past and now no longer live there, it's no longer applicable to. How's that hold water?
There is a legal entity called the Glen Lake Beach Club Association,
Right.
as you described it.
Right. But I,
Can you please step to the microphone?
Now,
No, it would not be picked up. It will not be picked up on the recordings.
I'm telling people can hear me like 3 rooms away, you know.
What'd you say? Hello?
Yeah, I don't understand this issue, but if we haven't gotten a letter, we don't know money, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, you know, just, and there is a policy.
What's your address, please?
No, 128, Sussex Mills area, but that's, we have our own, it's caveat emptor in real estate. You have to research. I mean, I have tons of surprises, there are easements or whatever, so.
Thank you.
Kathy Ebbinghaus, Scudder's Road. I hear tonight and over the course of multiple meetings, a ton of duress over this issue, and it makes me sad. The question I have tonight, though, is around the wording of the resolution. It lists the Township of Sparta as a co-borrower, but then later in the resolution, it mentions that there's no liability. So those two things seem to be at odds. When I've become a co-borrower on any loan in any way in my history, that has meant that I'm liable for the loan in itself. And that co-borrower term, as a resident of this community, is concerning to me.
In this respect, the co-borrower, we're the pass-through entity. So Sparta, one of the things that Sparta Township Administration does is assess taxes. It's one of the functions that we do. And so since we're good at assessing taxes, we were able to, we're in a position to be able to levy that assessment, collect the funds, and pay it to the entity, which in this case is the state. So we're and please correct me if I'm wrong, the co-borrower is the pass-through agent in this case. So the taxpayers of Sparta, the people that are not in this homeowners association, are not liable for that expense at all.
And neither is the town itself, even though they're listed as a co-borrower to a loan.
I think in last resort, because
correct.
it's just like regular taxes, the township would put a lien on the property and the property would become the township, so it's not actually a liability. There's always that asset there to back up.
Any other questions on Resolution 9-3? Hearing none, may I have a roll call vote, please, for adopting Resolution 9-3?
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
No.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn,
Yes.
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes, the resolution is passed. May I have a resolution, may I have a motion to introduce Resolution 9-4?
So moved.
May I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion on Resolution 9-4? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Okay, Resolution 9-4 is passed. May I have a motion to introduce Resolution 9-5?
I make a motion for 9-5.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this resolution?
Just a clarification question. This is a payment that's consistent with, I guess, a prior ordinance authorizing the building. This isn't a change order or anything like that, right? We're not,
This is existing payment on an ongoing project.
got it. Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Anybody else? Any other questions on 9-5? All those in favor of 9-5, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Okay, 9-5 is passed. May I have a resolution, may I have a motion to introduce Resolution 9-6?
Make a motion to introduce Resolution 9-6.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion on 9-6? Hearing none, may all those in favor say aye?
I have a
Sorry,
question on
go ahead.
this. So who came forward with this? Did we get a request for this?
Yes,
I
we
mean,
did.
these for 9-6 and 9-7, did we get a request from citizens or the organizations to put these flags up?
For 9-6, I did receive a request from a citizen that I believe was shared with the council. And for 9-7, I made the request personally. And that was also part of the package.
So why are when would these go up?
I think if you'll read the resolution, the first one, which is the Law Enforcement Appreciation Week, would be May 15th. I'm going from memory.
Yeah,
Actually,
that's correct.
to May, the end of the week.
21st.
21st.
So now council can pick their own flags?
I did so as a citizen.
So,
And then Resolution 9-5 for EMS Week would start the following Monday and would be only through Friday because the following Monday is a holiday and we don't get it taken down. So we went the 9-7 would go Monday through Friday, May 22nd, I guess,
21.
21, sorry.
so what day is that? 5/21 to what?
Let me look at
May
the
27th.
21 to 27.
There's not going to be any proclamations that go hand in hand with this? So we're not recognizing them at a meeting?
We could, and we could read those proclamations at the ceremony.
What's a ceremony? what's ceremony?
So I'm calling it a ceremony is kind of silly. There's going to be some event where the flag goes up and so forth. And I was going to discuss that under new business. So I want to create some kind of a process where when a flag does go up, someone actually has to raise it. And so that function will be performed at a certain time. And if anybody wants to be in attendance, they could. And so assuming if Resolution 9-6 passes, in those conditions, I've asked, for example, the person making the request. Also, I've also learned that the head of the National Law Enforcement Memorial, I can't remember the exact title of the organization, does live in Sparta and is also interested in attending. And I've asked the police chief if any of his or any of the staff would want to attend as well. The flag would go up, we would say our thank you, and 5 minutes later we'd be off on our way. That's kind of how I envision it, how this would work. But at the time, we could read a proclamation, but I am open to having an additional proclamation or reading a proclamation in a council meeting if that would be amenable.
Just on the note of a people being present for the raising of it. I think I'd want to discuss that some more. I'm not sure.
Yes, I was going to bring that in
Yeah.
new business.
Okay.
So back to 9-6, any other questions specifically on 9-6? Seeing none, may I have a roll call vote, please, on Resolution 9-6?
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
No.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn,
There's not a person on this planet that doesn't support law enforcement. I mean, everyone knows, and EMS as well, both of them, but I don't support this ordinance. I don't support government reach, overreach, or speech. And we agreed that before we did anything, we were going to put together a process. So I absolutely do not agree with just winging it and making it up as we go along. That was one of the things that was spoken about. So I'm voting no for this, with all due respect.
I disagree with your assessment that there's no process here.
Okay,
But
well, you
that
haven't been
said-
able to identify a process. We're winging it. Maybe there's a proclamation, maybe there's not. Maybe people go there, maybe they don't. That to me is not a process.
And you know where I stand, Chief.
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes, so Resolution 9-6 is passed. May I have a motion to introduce 9-7?
I'll make a motion, introduce 9-7.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I second the motion.
Any comments or questions on 9-7? Hearing none, may I have a roll call vote, please, to adopt 9-7 or approve?
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
No.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn,
Again, I have full respect for EMS, but I don't support this ordinance, so no.
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes, the resolution is adopted. May I have a motion to introduce resolution or to adopt Resolution 9-8?
I'll make a resolution, a motion to adopt 9-8.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I second the motion.
Are there any questions or discussion on Resolution 9-8?
Yes, I have a question. I understand that this, in a sense, replaces a resolution we did last meeting for the same services, same, do we need to, I guess, procedurally adjust or reverse or do anything to that resolution from 2 weeks ago at the same time?
No, we don't. In fact, that became void and ineffective upon the fact that it wasn't executed, the agreement wasn't executed by the other party. The other party, by the way, is now associated with J. Caldwell and Associates. So actually, the same individual is going to be working on this project, but through a new entity.
Okay. And just to clarify, this is for the GIS mapping services, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on 9-8? All those in favor of approving Resolution 9-8, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Okay, the Resolution 9-8 is approved. I may I have a motion to introduce or to approve Resolution 9-9?
I'll make a motion to introduce or to approve 9-9.
Thank you. May I have a second? I will second it myself. Any discussion? Again, this is for 9-9. This is the collective bargaining agreement for the dispatchers. Any discussion? Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please, on Resolution 9-9?
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn,
Yes.
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes, this resolution is passed. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 9-10 for the CBA governing the DPW supervisors?
I make a motion that we approve Resolution 9-10.
Thank you. May I have a second? I will second it myself. Is there any discussion on Resolution 9-10?
Yes.
Sure.
So let me start by saying I think we all agree that we need to protect and appropriately reward our current employees and for Sparta to retain or remain highly attractive in the job market. On this one and the following one, I believe more thorough analysis ideally would have been done and presented to us about the current conditions and about the long-time financial impact. To be a responsible leader and a caretaker of our tax dollars, that means also having the opportunity to read this or receive and read the agreement in advance, which I haven't had the chance to do that. Given the need, though, to take care of our employees, I won't stand in the way, but I don't plan to approve it because I haven't read it. And at a principle, I can't approve it. But I do plan to abstain. I don't want to get in the way of the employees.
Thank you. Any other comments on 9-10? Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Blumetti,
Abstain?
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn,
Yes.
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes, the resolution is approved. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 9-11, which is for the rank and file members of the DPW?
I make a motion that we approve Resolution 9-11.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on Resolution 9-11?
Just a repeat of my comments, same situation. I, at a principle, can't vote to approve it if I haven't seen it.
I understand. Thank you. Any other comments? May I have a roll call vote, please?
I have a quick
Sorry, I'm
comment.
sorry.
So Dean, normally I would agree with you, except for the fact that we have the budget in front of us as well. So for me, I mean, I agree with you. I would have preferred to see the entire contract before. But in speaking to Sam and seeing the budgets that's before us, there's not any issue that is there. So I just want to clarify, that's why, I know we shared that concern that we didn't see it.
Yeah.
But I want you to understand why I'm voting yes.
Okay.
Okay?
I've thought about that too, and to me, just the fact that the budget can fit it in does mean that down the road, that money is not available for other policies, strategies, projects. That's a zero-sum game, so it can fit in the budget, we could find room for it, but that means down the road, it still is taking up extra dollars, so that's my perspective a little bit on the financial impact.
It's in line with the others, though. So, I mean, we have like 5 different contracts. It's in line. So, I mean, I just want to be clear as to why, because I know we shared a little concern that it wasn't there. So, okay, go ahead, do the vote.
All right, may I have a roll call vote, please, on 9-11?
Councilman Blumetti,
Abstain?
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn,
Yes.
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes, the resolution has passed. May I have a motion to approve?
Can I make a motion that we table 912?
Sure, the motion is made to table 9-12. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion on tabling 9-12?
Are we tabling it for purposes of providing that those who said they
Why are we
could not vote as a result of not receiving the CBA in advance, that they would be given an opportunity to see the CBA in advance before voting on the resolution? Is that the basis for the tabling?
No, my understanding was that it was still being negotiated. Chief, can you speak to that?
Yes. My understanding, the Superior Officers Association received a draft of the contract early this week. I believe it was Monday. There was some different wording that was in there. They made it comments to Mr. Rome, Mr. Ryan, and we haven't heard back yet. So they would like to speak about it and then hopefully move forward.
Excellent, thank you.
Can I ask a clarifying question on the, so I saw the first red line, or a red line, but I just would like a little more context of how we got to this
I
point.
think we need to be careful about not discussing contractual work in public session, if that's, I mean, we can talk in generalities, I think, but I will ask our legal counsel to provide some
That's in the
boundaries.
council's discretion as to what you want to talk about. And again, in terms of what the township manager's decision was with regard to the language change, you know, again, I forwarded you an email advising of their objections, so I don't know what the recommendation is to the council at this point with regard to that language change. My understanding was that you were not going to require the language that had been put into the agreement for clarification.
So it sounds like there's still some loose ends to tie up.
Yeah, I have no objection to carrying or tabling.
Can I ask for background again, when it was negotiated?
The original contract was actually, had an MOU done on it, I believe, in the beginning of December.
That's correct. It was the MOU was adopted on December 13th of 2022.
But to tidy things up, I gave it to Mr. Ryan to actually get it done in a full-blown contract instead of an MOU. Because sometimes some of the MOUs sort of lose some of the texture of the entire contract. And I prefer to deal with a full-blown contract instead of an MOU.
And can you remind me again of the effective date? Can I ask that?
December 13 was when the MOU was.
Sorry, the January 1st?
The contract basically was up the end of '22.
Okay.
So it's still open yet? I mean, right now, the officers are
So it'd be
receiving.
retroactive back to January 1 of 2022.
Okay. And then finally, who was involved in the initial negotiations? How did we get here?
It was the township manager or acting manager at that time. I believe possibly the mayor and another council person was involved in it.
With the
Mr. Rowe, if I
CBA?
may speak, myself was involved, Officer Carberry, and you were also involved in the negotiation.
Any other questions on 9-12?
And just so we can get clarity on the process, it's my understanding that what happens is prior to the expiration of the contract, parties get together, meaning, Chief McCarrick, city manager, interim city manager, attorneys, and they hammer out an MOU, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then the next step is you have to turn that MOU into a collective bargaining agreement, which you endeavor to have that collective bargaining agreement reflect everything that's in the MOU. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And where we are right now is we're trying to get the collective bargaining agreement to jive with the memorandum of understanding. Is that kind of where we are right now?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay. And there seems to be, some back and forth about whether this collective bargaining agreement that we're hammering out actually reflects the MOU that the parties previously agreed to. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just wording differences and.
Okay. That's helpful to me to understand where we are and why, why there is some, negotiation still ongoing. Because we want to make sure that the CBA reflects the intent of both parties. That's the ultimate goal, right? Okay.
Yes, you need the CBA to reflect the terms that were agreed to and approved under the memorandum of understanding.
Excellent. Any other?
Did I hear you correctly before? I just want to confirm. Did you say, I'm a little confused. Did you say council person or two was involved in the negotiations?
I believe there was.
No, it was yourself, interim manager Spitaletto, myself on behalf of the SOA, and Officer Carberry on behalf of the SOA.
Maybe I'm mistaken. I don't know, a while ago.
Any other questions? So may I have a roll call vote, please, to table Resolution 9-12?
I'm going to ask one more question. So Chief, you're behind us tabling this to get this right? We can't move forward.
We cannot move forward. The officers requested something. There was something that was changed. It was not in the MOU.
Okay.
They requested it to be changed. It's in the manager's hands
Okay.
to speak with Mr. Ryan. And
So I
I'm
would
confident that it will be taken care of for both parties, and we could move on.
So I would just like us to be mindful of the timeline and for all parties to please get together and try to get this done so that at the next meeting, we have something in front of us that we can approve. So I would ask.
Officers are ready to meet whenever.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's fine. So may I have a roll call vote to table Resolution 9-12?
Councilman Blumetti,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Councilwoman Quinn,
Yes.
Mayor Chiarello.
Yes, the resolution is tabled. Council liaison updates. I will start with Councilman Blumetti.
Yes, let's see. So first, just wanted to mention the Environmental Commission is waiting to hear back on 2 small grant proposals that were submitted. And secondly, the Environmental Commission is working on a draft resolution to propose to the council for consideration. Obviously, it would have to be written by our own attorneys for the council in terms of getting it into the right form if it's so desired. The resolution is associated with the Great Waters New Jersey initiative, and it's about valuing and protecting Northwest New Jersey's water, the drinking water, the recreational value, the agricultural value, and the environmental value. And this is really, in essence, it's a resolution that would, the bottom line is it encourages the NJDEP to consider the value and prioritize the value of our waters in this part of the state for those different reasons. So the bottom line of the resolution is that it's a resolution of support and encouragement for the DEP to protect headwater streams, do it in consultation with municipalities and stakeholders, and promote the protection of drinking water quality and recreational value of our waters. So more to come on that. Second, I just wanted to mention, echo the earlier comments by Sam about the trout derby. I was able to attend. I just wanted to thank the Parks and Recreation Department and their staff for hosting this annual event. It was great. Every year it's great to see the kids out there away from their devices, away from their screens, not caught up and just out there putting their feet in the water, maybe catching a fish, experiencing wildlife and fresh air, and the families there to cheer them on and volunteers. So it was just another wonderful event. So special thanks to the Parks and Rec. And also, I saw staff from the Parks and Rec all during the day walking around, fixing something, picking up things off the grass. So, I mean, they're just there to make it a wonderful event and to make the parks look wonderful. So special thanks to the staff that was just there only to clean and keep the place tidy. And finally, a thank you to the Trout Unlimited volunteers. And full disclosure, I'm a member of the local North Jersey chapter of Trout Unlimited, but thank you to the volunteers that were there that day to walk around and give the kids some encouragement, unhook some fish, talk to the parents. So it wound up being a wonderful day. And lastly, I wanted to mention the Historical Society is running a Veterans Salute event, and it's sponsored by the Sparta Historical Society. It's called a Salute and Thank You. It's for our veterans and their families. It's going to be at the Van Kirk Museum property. It's going to be a 2-day event, so you can go on Saturday or Sunday, June 10th or 11th. Both days, first day is 11 to 4, Sunday is 11 to 2, and it's really meant to be a thank you to our veterans and also to exhibit some military equipment from different wars. So they're going to have some Iraq and Afghanistan war exhibits, Revolutionary War enactors, an encampment, Civil War reenactors, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, et cetera, and they're going to have some vehicles on display there. They're also trying to get someone from the Veterans Administration there in person to answer any questions the veterans might have. Admission's free, but they are asking for donations. There's going to be a donation bucket there, and the proceeds are going to be split evenly between the Historical Society and the Wounded Warriors Project. And finally, there's going to be food available for purchase hosted by the VFW. So again, Saturday, June 10th, Sunday, June 11th at the Historical Society to thank and honor our veterans. And that concludes my update.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Clark?
No updates.
Thank you. Councilman Hertzberg?
No updates. I'll let Chris do the seniors.
Okay.
Thank
Councilwoman Quinn?
You're good at this.
Good at talking. So council liaison updates, the Municipal Alliance, the Rec Advisory Committee, Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, and the seniors are all meeting this next week. So we'll have lots of updates there. We do want to also extend warm congratulations to Wendy Stamer. We did have our meeting on April 15th that I gave an update on. We also met with the food pantry. And as I mentioned before, the information The information is forthcoming on the handout that they would like to get out in the actual, in an upcoming tax bill. I've talked about this multiple times here, so that'll be coming forward as well. When it comes to the seniors, we also want to acknowledge Bob Nicholson Sr. will be turning 95. For those of you that do not know Bob Nicholson Sr., he is a valued volunteer and community member in our community for decades and decades. He has contributed significantly through his volunteer efforts, through his leadership. He's owned multiple small businesses in town. But we also, we definitely want to acknowledge him and wish him a very happy 95th birthday. Also, the Memorial Day Parade is coming up, so Salute 07871 will be working with the VFW who hosts that event. We hope to see everybody there. And additionally, I want to provide an update with regard to the rave system. So for those that have come, you've heard me speak about the rave notification system that we have in Sparta Township. Any resident and/or business owner is encouraged to sign up. The big news update here is that when you do sign up for your notifications, as was always in the past, you have the opportunity to select what notifications you want to receive. So you can select it. It doesn't just bombard you with everything. And we have recently made changes to those selections. We are communicating with the manager now to possibly to put together a press release of sorts to get people to be aware of this, but I want to share with you what the notifications will be. That will be emergency notifications from the Sparta Police Department, field and facilities closures, general township messages. New to the selection is health notifications. So if you want to be made aware of news from the health department, library programs and events, meeting reminders, parks and rec program events, road closures, Sparta's senior citizens notifications, so they will now have a platform and a way to get information out to our seniors, town and utility events, veterans affairs, so we will now have a platform to be able to reach directly our veterans, and volunteer opportunities. So we have expanded the list significantly in an effort to be able to really communicate better with the community. So we hope that everyone will go out. If you're already a member, you can, if you go to the upper right corner, you can get to it from spartanj.org. You can sign up for it. If you are already a member and you click on it in the upper right corner, there is a green dialog box for you to sign in. Use your credentials, sign in, and you can update all of your notifications. So I did want to share that because we've been talking about it. And I did confirm today with both the manager and the IT director that these changes are now live. So that's as far as council liaison updates, that's what I have.
Thank you. For myself, I can offer just a couple things. The Cultural Affairs Committee is, I think I mentioned before, the lineup is complete. We did have a park bench dedication for a former member of the committee, Bernice Verwis, last weekend. I was away on vacation. Unfortunately, I'm not able to attend. They are working on updating the website with the lineup and trying to figure out a good way to encourage donations to the committee. The donations are always welcome and does help support the concert series. The library board meeting is tomorrow, so I'll have an update on that at the next council meeting. And I have no other updates besides those two. In terms of unfinished business, we have none that I'm aware of. I think we just finished our unfinished business of the EDC discussion.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
So just, Councilwoman Quinn, if possible, can you share just an update on the AED progress with those devices? I know you were involved with those.
Yep. So I would love to share that update, and I will do that after our meeting next week. We have not had a meeting since. We don't meet monthly, we meet quarterly, or every 2 months. So I don't have an update because we're meeting next week.
Okay.
Okay?
Under new business, I had hoped to have a lively discussion about what a food truck ordinance might look like, but I'm going to make a motion to table that for now, since it is getting late. May I have a second, if anybody would so be inclined, to table the food truck ordinance discussion under new business?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, consider that tabled. Any new business? I'll start with Councilwoman Quinn.
Yes, I do. So first and foremost, we all have a flyer here. And I want to just spotlight Jean Monterano. She is the Recreation Director. She is being installed as an officer with the NJRPA, which is the Recreation Association of New Jersey. I just want to shout out to her on this achievement. I think we should be very proud to have her with us, so I wanted to bring that forward. In addition to that, in new business, I also want to commend our fire department and EMS. They worked together on April 27th when they were faced with responding to a rollover accident on Glen Road. It was a complete team effort. They were able to extricate the patient and get them safely to a trauma center. So when we talk about volunteers in our EMT and our EMS and our fire department, we are unbelievably lucky to have this outstanding group of people. They definitely saved the life. They've saved them all the time. You know, they are the heroes when we're running out, they're running in. And nothing could be better than to spotlight the outstanding effort that they did on April 27th, and I didn't want it to go unnoticed. Also, they've been working together. There's a lot of good teamwork in between the fire department and the ambulance squad in a lot of incident training, the next of which will be May 20th, and also classes about pre-hospital trauma life support that are going to happen on June 10th and 11th. So I think that we as a community should be extremely thankful that we have these amazing people that are responding. So I wanted to bring that up as well. And other than that, I think that's all I have for new business.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hertzberg. Any new business?
So I just want to highlight something. Most people know that I'm a staunch advocate for the local farms, and I met with one of the local farmers who was telling me a pretty scary story about how I guess they apparently cut a few trees down that were too close to a river on their own property, I will say. And the state came in, fined them, and basically forced them to sign over a portion of their land to the state as a conservation easement as part of their settlement. And then they came back and said in that area, they want them to start spraying pesticides. Now, this is an all-organic farm, never sprayed anything on their land. All their animals have never been touched by this. They're all grass-fed, grazed on their land. And now the state is going to come in and basically force them into this. And this is their brand. This is how they survive. So, you know, if it can happen in a town, 2 towns over, it can happen here. And I think that's just something, you know, the state is not always here to be your friend. And if we're going to protect our farms, you know, it's going to take a little more than, you know, I've talked a lot about the things that we should be doing to protect these food sources, and we're not going to have them anymore. But, you know, one of the things is sticking up for them so the state doesn't come in and ruin their land. That's all.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Clark?
Yeah, one, I want to just, you know, I think with Councilman Hertzberg, that, you know, I would be interested in hearing some possible solutions to that, because that does sound, you know, I feel for those farm owners that all of a sudden get hit with, you know, changing, you know, their whole practice. And so I'd be interested in hearing, you know, what remedies that, you know, the municipality can do, because I don't, that sounds like a very bad situation for them. I will update, because it's been raised here, just for the public and for my fellow council members, is the issue about a supposed conflict that I may have as a result of my prior involvement in litigation involving an application for development in the town. I wanted to update people that I had filed a motion to withdraw from that litigation back earlier this year. Surprisingly, there was opposition for me to withdraw from the case, and that was filed by the applicant. Thankfully, on March 10th, the appellate court rejected the opposition to my motion to withdraw, and the motion withdrawal was granted. But that was not enough. There was then a motion to dismiss to the appeal filed by the applicant, joined by the planning board. A majority of that brief in opposition to the motion, the brief in support of the motion to dismiss was dedicated to that conflict, supposed conflict. Then on April 28th, 2022, the appellate court denied the motion to dismiss the appeal, thereby rejecting any of the arguments related to the conflict. So I just wanted to update the public and my fellow council members about, judicial action involving this issue.
Thank you. Councilman Blometti?
No new business.
Thank you. I have a couple of things.
Yeah, and Dan, when you're done, I just have a couple more, but because it's not new, it's sort of old, it's not unfinished. I don't know where it goes. It already
Okay,
happened.
that's fine.
So go ahead, and then I can go after you.
So I think we were asked to provide, I didn't know if I had something I have to do online or just tell the clerk or the manager that I did take part in the elected officials training at the League of Municipalities meeting in November. That gives us a credit on our insurance. So do I just tell you and you take care of it, or do I have to go online and do something? Do you know?
Just email me and let me know what I do, and I'll find out about.
Okay, thank
I
you.
take a screenshot of the certificate at the end with your name and then send it in.
Okay, I couldn't, it was confusing about what I had to do there,
Oh,
but.
you did see, yeah. I don't know.
Okay. Secondly, we did make a decision earlier this year to move our meetings time from 7 o'clock to 7:30. I think in hindsight, that was, seemed like not a wise decision. So I'd like to open up for discussion briefly if there's any appetite for moving our meeting back to 7 o'clock.
Yep.
Yes.
Anybody else? Okay, so I'd like to, we'll try to put a resolution together for the next meeting to move our meeting time back to 7 o'clock. And finally, as I briefly mentioned before, since we did pass resolutions 9-6 and 7, I think it was, for the commemorative flags. So one option would be just to, one day the flag is there and nobody, it's just there, and then the next day it's, or some other time it's gone. I wanted to be more meaningful, having a commemorative flag raised. It certainly has meaning for the people that requested it. And so I had asked the township manager and the clerk and the assistant manager to come, if we can arrive at some kind of a repeatable process that when when a flag goes up, a commemorative flag goes up after our council accepts it or approves it, that it happens at a certain time. We notify the people that might be interested or notify the public that this is happening. Somebody's there, I think we just settle at 8:30 in the morning, which is opening a business. Anybody who's interested in can come. The flag goes up, we all say a word or two, we shake hands. 5 minutes later, we're back at work. It doesn't have to be big, but I think it has to be something. And so that's what I'm trying to work on with the manager and assistant manager and clerk to try to get some kind of repeatable process that anytime we approve a commemorative flag, that's the process that we follow for raising it. And as soon as that's settled, I guess we'll have a communication about that, hopefully by the end of the week. And that is the last new business I have. So Councilwoman Quinn, you had something else to offer?
Can I, before you move on to a different topic, can I just comment on
Sure.
something you said?
Yep.
I'm not sure that, I get the intent of having something in the morning where people can come and, I see the positive intent there. I'm a little concerned about the idea or the concept of a ceremony, only because when I think back to what has gotten Boston or other places, there's a little gray area sometimes, unless we're very careful, if we actually have a ceremony versus just us doing a commemorative flag for the right reasons. The ceremony part of it, including the public, might not be something that, we might want to think more about doing that before we kick that off and make sure that we're
Point
not going to
taken.
get ourselves in any trouble.
I understand. And I'll work with our legal counsel to see what would be appropriate.
I
But
think it's a bad idea. I think it's gonna put more on the employees in the town. Are you planning on being at all these flag raisings?
yes, I am. And we did identify an employee who would,
You can go to all the flag raisings at 8:30, but you can't go to EDC at 8:30?
that's correct. We did identify,
Checking. Just checking.
yes.
Okay.
A flag raising could be 5 minutes and an EDC meeting could be longer. Yes.
Let's move on.
Yeah, just to address your point, Dean, I think that the issue really turns on effective control. That's the issue when it comes to the legal issue involving, this particular, flag ordinances in general passed by townships. And I don't think that the presence of a ceremony changes the legal issue, which is whether the township has effective control over it. I think that in the same way that we invite proclamation recipients to be present for a proclamation that affects their entity or that person, I don't see that as any different. And frankly, I think it's a matter of common courtesy that if it's an issue, most of these will be brought up a lot of these will be brought up to our attention by someone. So, for example, the person who, submitted the flag about the fallen police officers, it was that person's idea, and of course it would,
He wanted to be there.
He wanted to be there. In addition to anyone, from our law enforcement who would like to be there. So I don't, someone may have a different point of view, but I don't think the fact of a ceremony changes any kind of legal dynamic, in my opinion.
So maybe ceremony is the wrong word. Maybe it's just when the flag goes up, we don't say anything and we watch the flag go up and anybody who wants to watch it can watch it.
I think we or the employer, we need to do the raising as well, not,
Well, the township person, employee would do the raising.
it,
I'm
okay.
not going to touch the pole up.
So Dean, I agree with your concerns. You know how I feel about the entire ordinance, and I think it's just growing and growing and growing. Overreach more and more and more, so that's my opinion, but Dean, I support what you're saying.
Okay, excellent. Councilwoman Quinn, you had, or any other discussion on that point?
What?
Okay.
That she had more new business.
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
on the point of the
Yes.
flag raising, is there any more discussion on the point of?
No.
Okay, so Councilwoman Quinn, do you have anything else to offer?
So I want to give a big shout out to the Sparta High School Unified Team. They had their Special Olympics this past week. They did amazing. And I am very happy to report to everybody here, they have earned a spot in states. So they are advancing. We are super proud of them. And they are amazing. And really could not be prouder of them. Great group of kids, great group of parents and teachers working with them. It's a huge thing to celebrate, and we should be very, very proud. And hopefully in June, we will have them all here to be able to celebrate them, but we don't want to jinx them before the states. So, but we really are just so proud, and I wanted to bring that up as well. But the event already happened, so this happened this past week. And the other thing I want to address, which I am happy was much better this evening, and I want to thank the chief as well. But I really think that we need to be mindful of the decorum in these meetings and people, providing, this is Mental Health Month. I want to make sure that we are addressing this behavior. I want to make sure that this is a place where everybody feels like they have the psychological safety in place to be able to speak regardless of what their opinions are. We can't have people attacking each other. It's bad enough when we can't control social media, we can't control what happens out there, but this should be the people's house of Sparta. So we need to really be mindful, in my opinion. We had a resident come here, a couple residents, and say they don't feel comfortable coming here. We can't have healthy debate if people are afraid to speak up because they're afraid they're going to, it's okay for us to have different opinions. That's fine. It's okay. It's healthy for us to have different opinions. I just want to be mindful of keeping it to a space where we're not turning people away because they're afraid and not feeling comfortable is my only point. So I just wanted to make sure that I addressed it and brought it up. That's all. Tonight, I think went great. So thank you. But I just think it's important for us to say the words and make sure that it's safe here for everybody. That's it.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to open up to the public for
I
anything.
had one new business, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Apologize that I forgot to mention. tonight we were asked to vote on a couple of collective bargaining agreements. And I think that I would like the council to consider for future ones, when it's presented to council, council is provided for, okay, what's the cost to the township, for the prior year? What's the annual cost over the life of the contract? What's the projected impact on the budget, so that we have some idea, because a lot of these collective bargaining agreements are, deservedly so, asking for increases in pay, et cetera. It would just be helpful to, at least to me, so I can understand what this financial impact is going to be. And so I would encourage, when this comes up again, to provide that information at the time so we can make a more informed vote on the collective bargaining agreements.
Excellent. Thank you. So at this time, does anyone from the public have anything to offer on any topic?
Dan, also, I'm willing to take if anyone wants to, if you agree, I'm happy to take the lead. If anyone wants to send me their food truck stuff, I could try to put it together in some form of fashion. I don't know if you want to have the public discussion first or not, but this is time sensitive because it's in spring, there's teams playing in all the parks, and as we know, implementing ordinances takes time. So I just don't want to put this off so that we end up in August saying, oh, great, now we have a food truck ordinance. So I'm offering to do that should my colleagues on the council want to move forward in that direction.
Thank you.
Tom Eisenberg, 128 Sussex Mills Road. I'm sorry, I'm half asleep. It's late and I don't want to keep us. First of all, the flag morass begins. Talked about that. I'm in favor of honoring every group. I really am. And I guess it'll be fun to drive by and see what flag is up this week and next week and the week after, et cetera. And Councilwoman Quinn, I do think Sparta's a little bit like Mayberry. I love that, and the shopkeepers, you come to the town council meeting, the people in the audience, the people on the council. It's wonderful. It's a little bit non sequitur of the Economic Committee talking about it now. I think, when there's a big issue like that, Dan, perhaps we can have public comment right after talking about it, as opposed to 2 hours later.
We did have two other meetings, one in February, and I think maybe both in February, where we did invite the public to speak
Yeah,
on
but that
the
was
economic
then, this is now, and, we're moving forward, and there's new stuff. But anyway, all I want to say is
There was a
that,
time also at the beginning of the meeting, well, actually, right now is the time when anything on the agenda, but at the beginning of the meeting, there was, I'm sorry, this is the time would have been time for that discussion. So yes, I believe that we're offering the time now.
no, thank you. Beginning of the meeting is before we had the discussion. And I understand how it's moving forward, and I make a request, that when there is the next discussion, you put it on the agenda, because some of us, just like those HOA people, are interested in this issue and maybe not some of the others, so that it be on the agenda at a certain time. I agree with Councilwoman Quinn that the Economic Committee, Development Committee, I think that's the right name also, as opposed to BDC, is very important. We should spend time on it. So you're going to come up with the points, and then the council's going to work on it. All I was going to say is I don't want to volunteer anyone who doesn't want to do it per se, but I think involving Councilman Hertzberg and Councilwoman Quinn made this point, is extremely important. First of all, I'd like there to be comity, friendship, maybe not friendship, but comity on the council, and that will look better for the town. And by the way, before I get to the economic development, Councilman Hertzberg mentioned this business about employees leaving and all. Maybe the council can't talk about, well, what happened to this guy and why was he unhappy, but the town's image and retaining employees and attractive employees should be council business, because you guys, and with our input, make the town what it is. And so if there's discontent, among employees or something, it should be discussed. And if there's, fighting on the council that's scaring away businesses, or they're worried about getting past the planning board or having too many requirements or whatever, that's, should be discussed. That
Do you have any empirical evidence that fighting in the council scares away businesses?
Well, one or two council members mention it, that they're.
That's anecdotal. Do you have any empirical evidence to support that?
No, it's not my job to come up with it.
But I think what he's asking is, have you interviewed all the people who have left? Have you spoken with them and they give you those reasons? I would just be careful making assumptions about why a particular individual has decided to either retire, seek other employment. What you seem to be doing is lumping on a bunch of assumptions onto that without any evidence.
I'm saying it's a possibility.
Oh, sure.
But Neil,
I mean-
it's not my place to talk to them, it's
Well,
your place.
then but it's also
Or
not
to
your
have to have the town manager and then talk to them and then report to you on the council what's wrong, what are their complaints. I mean, you don't want me interviewing them all, but you guys should be aware. But let's move on to the Economic Development Committee. I mean, that's a hot topic, this employee business, and may or may not be happening, whatever. But I think that involving Councilman Hertzberg, if he wants to be involved, is extremely important in the Economic Development Committee, both its formation and maybe on it also, because I don't think anyone knows the businesses and the fabric of Sparta as well as Josh Hertzberg and Councilwoman Quinn. So I just think that this is an issue we should not steamroll. Some council members steamrolling other ones, and it does go both ways. That which should not be mentioned, the big thing was steamrolling perhaps the other way. And we should have comity and not steamrolling in the future. But just in terms of, maybe, Dan, you're not going to talk to Josh in terms of what you come up with for the next meeting. I think it's very important. I mean, Josh knows the business of Sparta. And if he wants to be involved, on the committee or heading the committee or some such participation, I think you guys should really listen to him.
So
And
so let me-
Councilwoman Quinn also.
Let me respond to that a little bit, just to frame the process. When resolutions and ordinances appear on the agenda, how do they get there? Does the Stork drop them in there? What happens is that the mayor, deputy mayor, township attorney, the clerk, and the township manager get together to come up with the items that are on the agenda. And so when an ordinance comes together for a food truck, who writes the words for that? And the answer has been the people that we just talked about. Now, the people that we just talked about will try to craft something that is going to pass the council, has a majority vote. To do otherwise would be silly, right? Why would I knowingly put something together that is not going to pass? So with that in mind, in the first 4 years that I was on the council, not a single time did anybody solicit my input on any ordinance or resolution
That is
before
a
it was
blatant
drafted.
And that perhaps was wrong.
One
That is a lie.
Right. I don't mean to start a fight.
Please don't interrupt me.
Shame. It's
Okay, no,
unbelievable.
this is
Please
what,
don't interrupt me.
Councilman Quinn, I'm sorry. This is what we shouldn't have, accusations and all the rest.
That's a
Let
lie.
Let the past be the past, and then that's what was done
I'm
to
getting
you.
to my point.
We shouldn't
You're
do to
interrupting
other
me.
people going forward. And by the way, this business about what time, why don't you just constitute the committee, let the committee vote as the time they want, and have a majority vote of the committee. The committee has 9 people. Let them vote for the times, or work out the time themselves, because they're the people on it, and then the public can attend or not.
So to continue what I was saying,
Sorry.
in the 4 years before this, before a resolution or an ordinance was drafted, before soliciting my input, unless it happened in an executive session where we were all together, not a single time was my input solicited before it was written. So that said, I'm not talking about it because I'm bitter about it or anything. In fact, I didn't really care at all. Not care is the wrong word. It didn't bother me at all because that's democracy, right? And I might have been in a different opinion of other people, but I was certainly not in the opinion of the majority on some cases. And whether or not my input was solicited, it was fine. And the reason it was fine because I just enjoy the experience of just being here. I mean, how many people get to say that they're an elected member of their town? It's an honor that I wear a suit every day just to reflect the appreciation and the respect that I have for this. And just to be a part of the table and be a part of the conversation is just an honor. And so going forward, now that, starting in this year, what I wanted to do was to have opportunities for other council members to be part of the process of putting the ordinances and the resolutions together. And that is why we did things like, let's talk about together the Economic Development Committee. Let's talk about food trucks in the future. Let's talk about a hunting ordinance. We did that. We had 3 or 4 rounds of input on the flag ordinances. This is a way to get everybody's input up front so that we can then form a consensus and craft something that we think can pass. And even after that happens, everybody has an opportunity to offer amendments to that. I see you didn't take all of my suggestions, maybe you took some of them. I want to offer the suggestion again, and we all vote on it. That's just how the sausage is made. And so I'm happy with, I wish the meetings weren't going as long, but I'm happy with bringing open public debate on things that are still in the pot being cooked up.
I'm
And
not
so.
saying don't do public debate. It's
the-
wonderful.
The coda on that is that we, by virtue of having this discussion, we solicited the opinions of everybody, including Councilman Hertzberg and Councilwoman Quinn. So we did hear them, and that was done in public with everybody watching us.
I think it's been me since the beginning that has been begging for us to collaborate more before we get here. So, I mean, it's amazing to me, the level of manipulation and fabrication. So, you know what, if we're gonna get along together, we need psychological safety up here too, which clearly is lacking. So I think we just need to do a better job of everybody just pulling it together and working like adults in a collaborative environment where we can try to build some form of trust, because clearly, as Councilman Hertzberg brought up, we have some serious problems now that we need to deal with. And you know what? We are responsible for 20,000 people, businesses, you name it. There's no room for this nonsense. It needs to stop. So, as far as I'm concerned, again, you're not a strong mayor. We all are members of this council. We've all volunteered to do things. You want to do it yourself, and that's okay. But it can't prevent things from moving forward. So, that's where my concern is. Leverage the 5. We are 5 equal members of this council. We should have the same knowledge. We should be working the same, sharing the load, and let that happen so that we can move forward with some of this stuff already and get something done. Seriously, let's get stuff done. Let's do things that make a difference. We are heading towards unbelievably unknown. We don't know what's coming economically 6 months, 8 months, 10 months from now. We have got to start focusing on what matters and stop this and move forward together. So it's a good point.
Hopefully, we will. You will, Comity. My point is just soft advice that watch out for continuity and, using the resources that you have. The people who, horses for courses, as they say in the racetrack business, Josh knows the business, period. And Councilwoman Kuhn, and you guys know to whatever extent you do. But Josh grew up here. That's all I'm saying, vis-a-vis the Economic Committee. Maybe not what flag goes up next week, but that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, and I will just add that, I think part of, if you want comity, I would not be dismissive of someone's personal experience, and I think they're usually in the best position to determine what happened to them, and because it's their life and they recall it. So I wouldn't be dismissive of Mayor Chiarello's, his prior experience. That said, I do agree with you that what we want in this Economic Development Committee are people with experience, people who have knowledge, and I agree, Councilman Hertzberg and, Councilwoman Quinn do have that. And all that, it's not personal. It's not personal, right? Listen, we're going to disagree, Things will be said, there'll be animosity, but at the end of the day, I do believe that the 5 people that are up here are here because they wanted to have Sparta be the best town that it can be. And if that means that, Josh is on the committee or Neil's on the committee, and that's in the best interest of the town, then let's do it. And so I don't, I didn't want you to think, sort of implicit in your question, was somehow there would be a decision made based on some kind of personal thing. For me, I can tell you, I don't care. You can yell at me, you can say I did, if you're the right person for that particular position, then you should do it. And I'm willing to put that aside. That you may have said this or that, or you think this of me, I don't care. I'm not here, and I think a lot of people are not up here for, external validation. They're not. They're here to do what's best for this town. And I think if they keep that in focus, we can move forward. And I hope we can. And that's why I wanted to start the meeting, basically pointing out, I think, Councilman Hertzberg and Councilman had some excellent suggestions about the economic development. It showed their experience. It showed their knowledge. And we need to take that into consideration. And I know, speaking just for myself, I will take it into consideration. So I just wanted to say that because I don't want you to leave with the impression that somehow we're not trying to make this the best town that we can be, and somehow we're going to let personal animosity or grievances get in the way of that. I'm not. Okay? I can't speak for everyone else up here. I know the people, some better than others, and I don't think they are either. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Litchfield.
Litchfield, 120 Conestoga Trail. When we request to put up the military flags, it's tradition that you put them up at sunrise. So tomorrow's sunrise is 5:40, and they come down at sunset, just for the birthday flags. So, if you're going to, just keep that in mind when you come up with an ordinance. And if you want to meet a lot of business people in town, right across the street, Thursday morning, they meet at 6 a.m. It's the International Business Association, and they share information and leads. There's about 60 of them there every Thursday at 6 to 8. Thank you.
Where's that, Pete?
Right at the VFW.
Okay.
Every Thursday.
6
for sharing
a.m.
that.
6 a.m.
All right, don't mess around.
All right, anything else?
Kate Salerna. Hoping I don't have to repeat myself again about the address. So I'm trying to get all my thoughts together at 11 p.m. Once again, so first and foremost, I just want to say I'm really glad Tom is here. He and I, our beliefs or our discussions align a lot when it comes to the mega warehouse, and that's how we met. We actually had a really fun time at a paint and sip. We have a lot of great conversations and discussions. We also very much disagree about the flag ordinance. So there has been a lot of discussion tonight. And just to add to this through line that I'm sure is just going to become more and more heated despite, what we want. It's going to get worse before it gets better, probably, I assume. And to Tom's point, about the flags and everything, that's why I'm here. That's why I've been here. That's why I continue to come here. But having said that, Tom and I fundamentally disagree about the flag and probably about some issues surrounding the LGBTQ community. But we continue to talk and we continue to have discourse together and we continue to, for the most part, get along. So to some of these other points, to Mr. Clark's point, I couldn't agree more. In my own personal capacity, I've been accused of many things. I can say that I never take them personally because most people that make those accusations don't know me at all. And the people that do know my character well enough to know that this is the reason, again, why I come up here, why I continue to speak, knowing that certain people's opinions are less than stellar of me, regardless of whether or not they've talked to me one-on-one. So to that end, I'm going to say something on the record that I brought up last meeting. And I'm genuinely nervous to say it now because I don't know what it might mean, but I do feel like this must be the proper forum to bring it up because I have witnessed over the course of not just several meetings, but the course of multiple years, a pattern of impropriety, disrespect, and unprofessionalism from Councilman Hertzberg, including his admission on the record tonight after it was stated multiple times that legal counsel has informed the town council that it is not in the purview of the town council to have anything to do with employee status or anything else, that he said he took it upon himself in his capacity in his role as a town councilman to do so. He, as far as Ms. Quinn's points go, to many comments that you've made about the amount of time that's been wasted about flags and things like that, just in observance of this meeting that went from 7:30 to 11 tonight, more time was spent specifically on the Economic Development Committee just in this meeting alone than, over the last few meetings that we've had about the flag ordinance, and the Economic Development Committee discussion has been going on longer than the flag discussion. Additionally, your comments, and I believe that I can prove this going back through the live feed, took up more time this evening than probably everybody else's comments. And so I find it incredibly unprofessional and insulting that you're using that as a way to try to drive your point home, while at the same time talking about respect and decorum and a lack of respect and decorum. So I only got here at around 8:30 or whatever it was, but I was watching the live feed earlier, so I did see the person who spoke out of turn. And I thought it was absolutely appropriate the way that was handled, and I appreciate the chief and whoever else was involved with that, with dealing with it. Having said that, the most lack of disrespect and unprofessionalism that has been on display here this evening has come from the dais. And we're here till 11, and we had, the longest public discussion happened during the discussion about the Economic Development Committee, and then you once again suggested not going ahead with it because we needed to have more discussion. So there's incongruencies there, and also just,
Recommend not going forward.
again, like interrupting me while I'm speaking, all of these things fall under the purview of unprofessionalism. So last thing I just want to say, I actually wanted to put this up front, but I just remembered it now, is I actually really appreciate what you brought up about Sparta Fire Department and EMS and the response to this most recent incident that I hadn't heard about. I could not agree more. And to that end, I actually was genuinely surprised that you both didn't vote in support of the commemorative flags for the EMS and law enforcement, because I can say personally, my husband is in law enforcement. I do support that. I didn't come here to speak out against either of those things. And honestly, given the proximity of what just happened and the fact that you were just in this meeting praising our EMS and firefighters, I think that's all the more reason to just take a moment to raise a flag for them. I mean, we spend so many minutes of meetings carved out where there were discussions for the Economic Development Committee and other important issues, that we take a half an hour to do these proclamations for other things when, again, I have to disagree with Tom. I think that raising a flag, if it comes down to Dean's point, which I actually agree with at the end of the day, I mean, personally, I'm here for, I've been advocating for the pride flag. I personally would love to have a little thing going. I think it sounded great, actually, to have the chief there, and some of the officers and everything to raise the police flag. But to your point, maybe if we are going to get this many requests, maybe that's not practical. Maybe it's within the purview of the office of the town council to just have the flag up on the day. And like Tom said, we get to drive by and just be like, hey, cool. And just finally to this whole point about the flag, like y'all know that you're all involved in that discussion, right? Y'all are showing up. Y'all are talking about it. So it is an important issue. It's important because whether you're Mr. Litchfield here, Tom, or myself, or anybody else that's been showing up, we have said by showing up here that it's important. So it's important. And I love that information about the businesses at the VFW. And actually, full disclosure, I love and support the VFW. I have many military, friends and family. So I really, thank you and appreciate you for your service and all of that. So I just want to, finally, last point, because this is the thing that I'm nervous about, is I would like to know if there's an appropriate way to go about putting in like a formal complaint about, or what is the process for censorship or things like this if I have an issue that I'd like to bring regarding members of the council that I feel like are unfit for office, or for their professional position, and have been displaying that consistently. If that can be answered in an email, I'm happy to email as well, but I did want to make sure that I put it on the record this evening because I will be following up on it as well. I'm not talking about the votes.
No, you said that Councilman Quinn should have voted for the police.
No, I said I was surprised. I was surprised. I was ahead of this. I'm fine with how they voted.
This is not a forum for.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just to clarify, I'm fine with how they voted. I'm saying in my personal capacity as a citizen, seeing how the pride flag vote was moved and replaced with, specifically because the events or the commemorative flags for May, that it was law enforcement and EMS. I was just personally surprised that they voted against it. That was just me expressing that opinion. They can vote however they want to. What?
We were against the idea of putting flags up like that.
I mean, whatever, that's fine.
It'd be surprising.
Thank you. No, I never cease to be surprised. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Can I make one closing comment?
Sure.
I just wanted to share my own opinion about Sparta, and leave on a high note. My opinion, I think the vast majority of people who live here and go through Sparta think it's doing wonderfully, and it's a stellar place to live and to work, and the township is beautiful. We have so much to offer. I think we're doing a wonderful job. Every place has issues they have to deal with, and they have decisions to make, and they need to review and discuss things and change for the future. But my opinion leaving here tonight is still it's a wonderful place to be. And just evidenced by what I saw on Saturday with all the families out there and talking to the staff, talking to the police officers, talking to families, and just seeing people everywhere outside of games, having a great time enjoying this town. I think we're doing wonderfully. Yes, we have some things to fix, but I don't want to leave here thinking we're circling the drain. I mean, it's a wonderful place. That's my personal opinion. I think the vast majority of people support it.
Thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Aye, thank you.